Good morning and welcome to Newsfile, your most authoritative weekend news analysis show. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. We are live on the Joy News channel on Multi TV, on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra, and on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi. The show is also streaming live on all our social media platforms. This week, disaster struck yet again. 6 young Ghanaian ladies died under extremely bizarre circumstances. They are joined about 21,000 other young men and women at the EL-WAK Stadium here in Accra, seeking to join the Ghana Armed Forces in a recruitment exercise that clearly lacked professionalism, discipline, and respect for human lives. According to the Ghana Armed Forces, a total of 28 applicants were rushed to the 37 military hospital for emergency treatment. Out of this number, 6 were confirmed dead. 5 are currently in intensive care unit, and 12 others remain in very critical condition. A board of inquiry has been constituted to unravel the circumstances that led to the unfortunate incident. Also this week, the final report on the investigation into the August 6th helicopter crash that claimed 8 lives, including 2 ministers of state, was presented to the National Security Council, chaired by the President. The investigators determined that a sudden and powerful downdraft was the cause of the catastrophic helicopter crash. They confirmed that the Z-9 aircraft involved was serviceable and airworthy at the time of the incident. However, the absence of certain critical safety systems may have reduced the crew's situational awareness during the flight. We ask whether this report brings closure to the matters or it was an attempt to whitewash. Again, this week, by a majority of 163 to 69, Parliament voted to approve Justice Paul Bafo-Boni as the new Chief Justice of the Republic. But the process was not without controversy, as the minority members on the appointment committee staged a walkout during the CJ nominees' vetting. According to them, the decision to walk out was based on the fact that the former CJ, Gertrude Tokonu, has 7 legal suits pending. The suit raised concerns about judicial independence, and they also cited conflict of interest concerns against the CJ nominee. With the approval of a new CJ, does this mark the end of the road for Justice Gertrude Araba Isaba Tokonu? We ask. And finally this week, Dr. Kesiel Atoforsen was in Parliament to present the President's economic policy and budget statement for 2026. Some of the highlights include consolidation of macroeconomic stability, significant investment in the energy sector, commercial, agric, and roads, especially the Accra-Kumasi Expressway. Also, strengthening the security of the country to safeguard its territory. And government plans to establish electronic warfare center in Tamale, and also a total retooling of the military. Modernization of education to end double track, removal of the COVID levy, and reduction in the effective VAT rate. Most crucially, however, and a bit disappointing, is the fact that government expects to rake in some 268.1 billion Ghana cedis in total revenue, but intends to spend a total of 302.5 billion Ghana cedis, leaving us with an overall budget deficit of 64.2 billion Ghana cedis. We'll be back after this short break to interrogate these vexed matters. This is Newsfile. Stay with us.
You make us say, soldier and penny for my assault to say, Yama. Ensia omunyina eyamabawa oma hwere omonkwa se Kumasi hanso bibi kakra saesiye echese nipa baako se we prade de ndia oda ayaresabia ono so yabompa ese obenya ahode na nyame ahunumobo enti enkrandia no meka che asoja force omunja yansa na yenhwem na ye nhihye foforo se ne be ya na esi no ensi sabium
You that we are going to take the process very, very seriously. Ready? We will take everyone who has to go for training. You can be rest assured we will have gone through all the vigorous stages. Very, very vigorous stages. And maybe, I don't know whether this is a right forum to say it, including drug tests. We'll make sure that we'll check whether you are a drug addict, so that we'll make sure that we do the right thing. And I want to assure you that under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, we will do everything humanly possible to make sure that this process, the right people get into the training. Take that from us, and I can assure you that we'll do everything to ensure that.
Welcome back. This is Newsfile, live on the Joy News channel on Multi TV, on Joy FM here in Accra, and on Love FM in Kumasi, on social media, especially Facebook and YouTube. The show is streaming live. Newsfile is brought to you by Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and as close as a partner. MTN, everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex Tank, it is strong, it is tough. Activa International Insurance, our clients, our passion. International Facilities Management Association, Safari Valley Eco Park, bringing you closer to nature. Valex Lease, your affordable document management solutions, and Gold Board Jewelry, pure, precious, proudly Ghanaian. Let me first introduce my guest for this morning. And joining me on Newsfile, I have Victoria Bright, an international corporate lawyer and entrepreneur. Counsel, good morning and welcome. Thank you. Would later be joined by Dr. Priscilla Chumesi Bafo, who is an economist and senior lecturer, Department of Economics, University of Ghana. But I have with me here Yao Apia Late, a lawyer and partner, strategy and transactions, and Africa Infrastructure and Capital Project leader, Deloitte Africa. Yao, good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And also, let me now move to our two members of parliament joining us here first. The Honorable Isaac Adongo, who is MP Bol Gatanga Central, chairman of the Finance Committee in Ghana's Parliament, and a board member at the Bank of Ghana. So you would see him in his Bank of Ghana CD at 60 t-shirt. Honorable, welcome.
Thank you.
I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, by His grace, it's always great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And also with him is Dr. Mahama Tia Abdul Kabiru, MP for Wale Wale, and a member of the Finance Committee in Ghana's Parliament. Honorable, welcome.
Thank you.
I hope you're doing well.
Doing great.
Super. So would kickstart, our conversation with the disaster that happened within the week. Quite unfortunate, but 6 young ladies are dead. As we speak, 12 are in very critical condition, 5 in intensive care unit, all at the 37 military hospital. We are told one person also got injured in the Kumasi recruitment exercise. As we speak, the one in Accra has been put on hold. All the other 15 regions are currently ongoing. Lawyer Victoria Bright, I'll start with you. You are a woman, and a mother, seeing 6 young ladies die in the quest to seek for job. That's heart-wrenching.
Indeed, it is. First of all, my deepest condolences to the families involved, because these young people did nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. All they wanted to do was to get a job and to serve their country. The deaths are needless, and it was a preventable tragedy, totally preventable. I do not understand how you can send out text messages. You can, first of all, sell forms, so you know the number of forms you sold. you send out text messages. You know the number of text messages you've sent out inviting these young people to come to a venue for a screening exercise. So I don't understand this use of the unexpected, stampede numbers or whatever it is. It was totally expected because it wasn't an advert in the Daily Graphic inviting anyone who was interested to show up. This was something that was supposedly planned. Yeah. And so what we saw...
This will happen.
I mean, look at the screen now. It's incredulous what we are witnessing. How do you say to your parents or to your friends, I'm going for a job interview or for a job screening, and end up dead at the venue, where someone invited you to show up? Yeah. So I want to know, someone dropped the ball. Somewhere along the line, someone dropped the ball because somebody was responsible for this. Yeah. So I think that Ghanaians deserve to know, and the families of these poor children deserve to know who dropped the ball. What planning arrangements did they put in place? What safety arrangements were in place? How did this happen? I kept looking at this and thinking of the phrase planning with military precision. It's something we all use. And the irony of it, the reason why we use that phrase is because the world over, the military are known for planning, absolutely disciplined, meticulous, and planning everything with precision. So how did we end up with this shambolic situation, which has ended up in unimaginable tragedy of young people whose lives have been cut short midstream? So I think we need to do better, and we need to really look again at some of these procedures. Did everyone have to come to EL-WAK? We have so many stadiums across in Accra.
Even in Accra.
Even in Accra and the Tema, the Greater Accra region. We have stadiums there. So why must everyone come to EL-WAK? We know the capacity of EL-WAK.
EL-WAK sit around 10,000, but we are told 21,000.
Yes, 21 over double the amount. And they were all put in this place. There was no water. I mean, you've collected, what, 200 cedis yes. per applicant. You couldn't even provide pure water. I mean, we have to show a little bit of care to our youth. They are sitting there in the scorching sun. No food. Some, I understand, had been there since the night before. Sure. They had slept through the thing, and you dare not leave because you probably lose your place or whatever. So they are just sitting there in the scorching sun. What? They just want a job. They want an opportunity to serve Mother Ghana. That is all, So I'm just, as a mother, I just find it extremely, extremely upsetting and heart-wrenching to see this. I mean, looking at the parents, the families, when the president went to commiserate with them, it's totally. And also, why did they not stop? Why did the president have to tell them to stop before they stopped? Who is this person who was in charge of this exercise? Why should His Excellency the President say, look, stop this now, before they stopped? I mean, surely the situation, it was obvious that there had to be a stop. And also, the other thing that's vexing my mind is, why are we selling these forms? Why are we selling these forms to people who are trying to serve their nation? In other countries, people are actually...
They are begged. They are begged to even come and join.
They are begged and they are rewarded and persuaded and cajoled to come and join the armed forces. But here we are. Must everything be reduced to money in this country? Why are we charging young people to have the opportunity to come and apply for? No, we have to stop all this.
Has to stop. I mean, the amount paid, I think last year was some 350 Ghana cedis. So when this government took over, the deputy minister announced that the price has reduced to 200 Ghana cedis. Last year, we're told close to 90,000 people applied. This year, a little over 60,000 people applied. So by 200 cities, you are looking at some 12 million Ghana cedis.
And they couldn't provide pure water.
That's some 12 million Ghana. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
120 billion old Ghana cedis.
We have to stop charging them at all. I mean, it's good that the figure was reduced from 350 to 200. Because the fact is that a lot of these young people can't even afford this. You know. So I think we have to stop the payment for these application forms to join the security, or for the opportunity even to join the armed forces. And the whole recruitment process has to be totally overhauled. Sure. And security has to be paramount in this country. I mean, we see military running away from crowds in Galamsey mine sites. Now we see this happening, and total lack of planning. And what is going on?
I understand. Yeah, I'll come to you. The ministry has ordered or put together a board of inquiry to look into what actually happened. Already the deputy minister has announced that all the people directly involved in this have been asked to step aside for the investigations to proceed. Some have argued that we don't need investigations to really establish what happened. I mean, the director of manpower planning of the Ghana Armed Forces by now should have lost his job and all of that. I mean, for those who want to see some drastic action happen, what do you think and what do you expect to see going forward?
Yeah, so I think it's important to establish what happened. Yeah. And it's not the event or what happened on that day, but even prior to this, how did you get information about the applicants? And then how did you plan the process of admitting 21,000 people and putting them at one site? I think it's important because that's a risk that we took. And so whoever was involved in that, we should understand why the person thought that there could be 21 people hosted at one particular place. And we have to understand how the Ghanaian system works. And I've seen a Nigerian who came to Ghana, went to the University of Ghana, and he says, Ghanaians are they respect a lot of order. He goes to the watches cellar and there's a queue there. He goes to the trotro station and Ghanaians, nobody has asked them to form a queue or to join a queue, and yet there's order. So it means that when you plan, Ghanaians will follow that order. If you had announced that on day one, you are only expecting 4,000 people, there is no way the person who's supposed to be on day 3 will be allowed to the premises. And so it means that there was not proper planning. If you have collected information about people and you have put them in a proper planning system, if you say on day 1, you are expecting people with surnames starting with A. In Ghana, if you say you are asking people to come with surnames starting with A, you have about 40% of the people. So let me give you some statistics that could have helped them. I mean, look at it. You have 21,000 people that you expected to come on board. That, if on average, if you spend 10 minutes vetting someone, 10 minutes per person, that is 210,000 hours or minutes. That translates 3,500 hours. And then that's 145 days. If the military had just 1/10, they would have gone through these 21,000 people in 145 days. So if you want to do this in one day, you needed 145 outlets, approximately 150 outlets.
Interestingly, they had 9 screening points.
That's woefully inadequate for this. So with these statistics, you needed 145 outlets. What you could have done was to put 50 outlets in EL-WAK, 100 at the Accra Sports Stadium, and another 30 at, let's say, Independence Square. You will do this in one day without what happened. So it means that we did not go to proper screening system. We used to have this problem in our embassies. Most of the embassies used to have that problem, and they outsource it to VFS. This day, you are given a time to report at the embassy. And when you go there, there's someone who asks and check whether you have an appointment that day.
That time.
It's only one person. And the person can drive you away or ask you to go and come back when it's time. So it means that you don't even need military, you don't need to beat anybody at the embassies. Previously, people used to spend like 3 days or 4 days at the embassy before their time is up. It's a thing of the past because you outsourced it. So I think the military should think of outsourcing the whole process, not the vetting process, but even the process of administering the crowds for these recruitment exercises. It's something that we should think about because in our passport offices, look at it. You go to our passport office, let's say where we have it now at the Ghana Digital Center or Digital Center. It is so organized. There's a lot of order. If you go to the embassy, there's a lot of order. And in a lot of public places, you see a lot of order there.
But the military with their level of organization, do you think they still have to outsource this?
And that is why I think that it's even within the military, we should have people who are dedicated towards planning the process of organizing this recruitment exercise. Because we assume that because it's military, some of these things, it is just by default, you'll be able to handle it. But managing process, gathering information online, and working with the statistics such as I've given, it is not anybody at all who can do it. Some of them have to think through this. And if they have thought through it, if they have gone through what I've just outlined, that we only need about 50 outlets at EL-WAK Stadium. There's no way you can accommodate 21,000 people without an issue at one place. So you could have just outsourced it, or we could have just gotten them to go to 3 different sites in Ghana. In Accra here, we could have done this in one day without any issue. I think the second thing that we need to take note of is just our disaster management processes. And it takes me back to May 9th, when we had about 120 people losing their lives at Accra Sports Stadium. And it was coming on the back of some recommendations that were made that we should not use tear gas at the sports stadium. Because that is what aggravated the situation. So people were just running because the police had thrown tear gas into the crowd. So what happened? Did we start beating people? And why did we have to beat people? Did we start harassing anybody? Because in a crowd, anything could trigger that stampede. If you have 20,000 people gathered at one place, anything at all could. So there was no way to exercise force on anybody. We just had to plan it properly. And I think beyond that, we should also have proper emergency medical system, because I guess some of the people passed out, and if we had attended to them early, they would not have lost their lives. Because it may be out of exhaustion, the person passed out, and if the person could have attended to in the next 20 minutes or so, the person would not have died. So I think our emergency response system should also be improved, because the military should have had a backup emergency response team that among the crowd, if anybody passed out, and even there are instances where it is not a stampede situation, people standing from morning to evening, somebody could pass out. So if the person passed out in the crowd just by standing in the sun, what was the response? Was it ready to support such people? So I think the whole planning for the recruitment was not done properly, and so we must investigate thoroughly, and the recommendations must be implemented. I dare say that some of the recommendations that were made by the Okujeto committee after the May 9th, I don't think we have implemented all of it. So we have these committees we set up, they produce recommendations, and we fail to implement them. I think as a nation, we should have a way of implementing recommendations, because if some of those recommendations have been implemented, I don't think this would have happened.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Thank you. Honorable Muhammad Tia Abdul Kabiru, I know this issue came up for debate on the floor of Parliament. I mean, members of Parliament made comment here and there. The Speaker even called for the immediate appointment of a new defense minister, because he believes leaving that ministry ajar under the watch of an acting minister doesn't really bode well for us as a country. But are you as outraged as many other Ghanaians are?
Well, also, again, thank you very much for having me, and good morning to the people of Wale Wale.
Sure.
I think that my brother is my neighbor. I'll greet the good people of Wale as well. Yeah, so first and foremost, we must first admit that we have failed the youth of Ghana as a country. It is on that basis that probably they may even find some space in their hearts to forgive us, irrespective of the government that is in power. That young people we churn out of the universities are actually exposed, that for no fault of theirs, in an attempt to make ends meet, will lose their lives. And I think that, I mean, as a country, for a moment, if we can put politics aside and, just take collective responsibility and admit that as a country, we have failed the youth, especially the families of those 6 ladies who died. I mean, I'm just imagining for a moment, if that was my sister or my daughter, I mean, how will I take it? The memories would haunt me forever. That I trained my with the support of the state, my young lady or my young son, the day that the person is trying to get a job after all these years of struggling, the person will lose their life. So we don't have any justification whatsoever. And as much as collectively we take responsibility, those who were tasked with this responsibility have failed all of us. Because at a point in time, we must entrust some of these duties on some people
sure.
to execute on behalf of the whole of the citizens. So those people who are directly in charge, where we are serious as a country, those people should have just done us the honor of resigning.
Voluntarily.
Voluntarily. Those people were directly, if they were so minded about the plight of these people, that would have been the honor. They would not even need to get into the politics of it. We would have had the faith that, look, we are moving as a country and that people are taking responsibility for their inactions or their omissions in this country. You see, the whole thing has been diagnosed. What will inform over 60,000 people, or let me say 10,000 people, coming to one center for the purpose of screening? 21st century? That we can have security protocols. What will even inform you locking up the place until such time that the place is, people are about to enter, then all of them mass up at the gate and you open it, as if you are opening a floodgate? Definitely there's going to be stampede.
Yeah.
Definitely people without confidence in the screening process will want to take an advantage position. That's what they will be. They will be rushing to enter. Definitely people who think that I have gone to this particular center and after, if I don't take time, I may sleep there for the next day, will be false. And when this happens, it's a survival of the fittest. And no wonder most of the people who are with the greatest of the ladies are by nature are not aggressive.
Yeah.
So the aggression probably from the males would probably overwhelm them. This overwhelming aggression from the male in that particular scenario would be a problem for the women. And when we're even serious, we just have to have a separate screening exercise for even male and women. Even if we are minded to ensure that, look, based on gender differences and based on different orientation and upbringing, and also probably some of them could be stereotypical, but they exist and persist within the society. So I think that the security protocol was bad, it was terrible, and whosoever is responsible for that should be burying his head in shame. But it also talks to the whole issue of employment for the youth. That for military alone, people who want to go into the military to be enlisted or to be recruited, over 21,000.
That's Accra alone.
Accra.
21,000 is just Accra.
It tells us that we have a timing bomb, that if we don't do something about it, one day this country, the youth will turn this country upside down. And I think that we need to tackle unemployment with a very systematic policy framework, that even if it remains, fortunately we are having a constitutional review, if it must legislating it in a manner that will not let any government derail from it, consciously we must be thinking about that, so that we can address a long-term issue about youth unemployment in the country.
And I mean, talking about unemployment, the Ghana Statistical Service in 2024 said persons aged between 15 to 35 years, there are about 1.42 million of them who are jobless. That's in 2024. And then about 2 million youth considered idle in our country at the moment. So 1.42 million considered unemployed, 2 million youth considered idle. That's massive.
Yeah, and even looking at even those, in those particular, not even the center across the country, the centers, how they even treat these young people in the recruitment. It's like they are already in the training, camp. People would dress, of course, you expect protocol, but they are sitting on the floor in the sun. Yeah. You are not for crying out loud, you are not actually training them. They are not criminals, they are not warriors, they are not prisoners. They are young people coming to look for a job. And the only way you can accommodate them is to let them sit on the floor in the sun. I think that this country can do better, and we have to look at. And for me, I support the cause by some people who say that we have to look at compensation for those, for the victims, families of the victim. Yeah,
government has announced that for each of the 6 families, they would make sure they enlist one person from each family as to honor the memory of those who passed.
Yeah, the gesture is commendable, but it's a shame. It's commendable. With the greatest respect, the gesture is commendable, but it's a shame. For those families, unemployment is better than loss of life. As of now, for those families affected, they would have preferred to have their daughters be unemployed than a job without my daughter. But we have to commend the government for. But you see, Martin Amido also says something. I think that we have to find time to read his piece. And that also goes down to the whole issue of taking responsibility. He's of the view that the acting minister responsible for defense has not taken responsibility.
The Minister of Finance, who is acting as the defense minister.
Yes, that is the view he shares. And I support that view, because the response he gave in Parliament basically did not suggest that as the minister responsible for defense, he had taken ultimate responsibility for what happened. If he cannot take, the president ought to have taken ultimate responsibility for what happened. Because I said as a country, we are all blamable, right? Mm-hmm. But someone will have to take the ultimate responsibility. Even people are not voluntarily resigning, he has to make sure that those people go. Because
but would that not be after the Board of Inquiry investigation?
Whatever the inquiry has to be, some people can be suspended pending the inquiry. There were people asked to do the job.
The minister has said that all the people involved have been asked to step aside.
I say some people step aside is different from being suspended from their job. You are asking the person to step aside from
pending the investigation.
You are stepping aside from the exercise. It's not that we've not been told that anyone has been asked to go home for negligence of duty, pending the outcome of the. We are just asking that those people who were doing the recruitment, as the veracity of that particular statement is even something we can't establish. Those people who were in charge of the processes of the screening
should step
aside. Once we get different people. Is that the way to take immediate responsibility for what has happened? So I think that basically my condolences to the families of the bereaved. I mean, those people who have lost their lives. And I just wish that this thing would never repeat itself. In the past, we have had recruitment. It wasn't that it was the best. Past recruitment are not always the best, but we think that we should be improving. But as days goes by and years goes by, and we are rather retrogressing, and that we are not putting in any measure to improve on the welfare of our people, then the people we are leading will lose faith in us. Maybe, I just hope not sooner. If it's going to happen very soon, I'm sure that this country will be difficult to govern. And I just, not with the greatest respect, the president will have to do more. The compensation should go beyond the slots. Some compensation should go beyond the slot. For all I know, that is my only daughter.
Okay.
So who are you going to replace with that? So there must be some other form of compensation directly to the people who are being affected. Okay. And I think that will not be enough, but it will serve as a solace for them to know that the state, Ghana, actually came to their aid and sympathized with them in their difficult times.
Yeah. I spoke with parents of two of the ladies who came through from Kaswa, and you needed to listen to the parents as they spoke. I mean, extremely heart-wrenching. One of the ladies turned 25 just last Tuesday and then passed away on Wednesday. Very, very terrible. One of them also is a staff of CBG in Kaswa. She works at the inquiry desk in the bank and decided to join the armed forces and met her untimely death. Her dad is passed. Her mom is also very, very sick. She was the only hope of the family, and the woman was weeping uncontrollably. It's terrible what has happened to some families. But I'll take you to Parliament, and then I pick excerpts of the debate in Parliament before I bring Honorable Adongo in. So let's listen to the Pusiga Member of Parliament who was on the floor of Parliament speaking about what happened.
But I want us to all take solace in the Almighty Allah. There is nothing that happens that doesn't happen at the right time. This is what the Almighty Allah has ordained for them. Today is their day. No matter how, no matter what, no matter who was there, as what, even if we brought all the presidents of the world to sit there as ministers or whatsoever, once today is ordained for them to die, they will. And this is what has happened. Unless you don't believe in the oneness of God, unless you don't believe in the oneness of the Almighty Allah, it is not anybody who wanted them to die. There is no single officer there who wanted even one single soul to pass.
So that's the Honourable Member of Parliament for the Pusiga constituency, the Honourable Ladi Ayamga, who herself is a member of the Appointment Committee in Ghana's Parliament. Honourable Adongo, what do you think of what has happened and government's response so far?
Well, let me greet all of you, my colleagues on the panel, and to my constituents, the good people of Bolga Central. They've been excited that they are seeing me today because it's been a while since I've appeared in these type of programs. But once the budget is out,
we have to hear from Honourable
That is
Adongo.
where my bread is buttered, and I do a lot of that with my colleague who is assisting me to get some of the laws that are required to enable the government to implement the budget. Sure. And I do believe that he and his team will continue to give us the support that they've always given us. Mm-hmm. And he's one of those rising young men on the committee, and I commend him for the work he's doing. To be honest, what has happened is a national tragedy. Mm. And our heart goes out to the bereaved families, and we pray that those who are injured would get the favor of God to recover quickly. But I want to say that as a country, we are not learning. We are not learning because everywhere in the world, when you undertake these kind of critical exercises, there is always a stage where you sit back and reflect. You sit back and evaluate what has happened. And we've been doing recruitment for all these years. And if the military, as one of the best institutions for planning and executing projects, I would be surprised that they don't have an evaluation mechanism to inform lessons for some of these things. So like my honorable colleague said, over the years, if we have been learning and evaluating, we would have noticed that this has been long in coming. That we've gotten away just by dint of luck. It's not because we have done anything right. Because we are not learning the lessons. Everything shows that the previous numbers were even bigger. Mm-hmm. I mean, 90,000 across the country. Obviously, EL-WAK could have been bigger. But because we were lucky to go out unscarfed, we thought that that was a perfect system. And therefore, we didn't learn the lessons to inform future events of that nature. And I think that is a weakness that we need to fix, not just in the military, but anywhere we are doing some work to improve the lives of our people. We must have at the back of your mind that at the end of this exercise, we must learn some lessons and be better at it the next time. And I think that is where we have failed as a country. And cumulatively, we have tended to be complacent because we are not seeing this happen. And it's unfortunate that as a country, we only wait to lose a life before we tend to think right. And I think that that is a weakness that we need to address going forward. Even though it will not bring back our compatriots who have passed, I'm sure they will be happy that as a result of their passing, the country learns lessons and doesn't go back to the same experience in future. And we owe it to them to ensure that that happens. The other thing I would like to say is that, of course, nothing can bring back those compatriots. Nothing can soothe the family. So whatever gesture the government is giving is a gesture that is given not because it will bring back the bereaved families and restore them, but it is a gesture to say that there may be somebody who could step in and provide livelihood through this exercise to support the family. And if that is possible, let's do it. But I believe that the committee that has put together to investigate this may make recommendations that border on the adequacy of whatever packages that we are giving to them. So let's wait and see what they will recommend to His Excellency, the President, through the Minister. I am one person who believes that as a country, whenever there is tragedy, we come together. But anytime things are working for us, we tend to forget that unity is the way to build this country. And you can see, even in Parliament, that we're united in grief. And the feeling was that we have failed our people. Unfortunately, we tend to politicize everything. And that makes people that we pay to undertake the actual implementation of policy get away with murder. If people have been entrusted with responsibility, does it make sense that we look beyond political authority to identify those people and hold them to account? At the end of the day, we reduce this to political debates, and the people are hiding under the political clock, and they don't get fished out, and Ghanaians have tended to believe that anytime there's a problem, just play the politics of it. Get politicians to own it, and you can get away with it. That has to change. Sometimes I sit and watch, say, Public Accounts Committee, and I see evidence of our country being milked, and we reduce it to politics. And the people who have milked the country basically get away by identifying with the political system. And that is the bane of this country. And we need to begin to rethink. We need to rethink processes, and we need to rethink standard operating procedure for everything that we do. So that even before you start an exercise, everybody knows that this exercise goes through certain processes. There is a stage where we look at the numbers, we look at the procedure that we are going to use, and we look at the adequacy or otherwise of it. It cannot be that you are bringing 21,000 people in one location and we do not know what was the duty call. What exactly do we think could happen? We need to have various scenarios of possibilities and be able to say that on the basis of this, we think that this time round, and from the experience that we've had, this should be the way to go, and that we are not going with the status quo. But we put people into positions, and all they do is to manage status quo. This is the way we do it here. And this is the way we do it here mentality is why we are not improving. Why should the military and security services, and I'm being honest here, if you ask most of those people who were there when they were in school, the last thing they would have thought about is that they will queue to become members of the military or security services. It's because the system has failed to deliver the ambition that they had, and they need to keep body and soul together. They have had to settle for what originally was not their intention. But if we have to satisfy that of even for them, we must do that within an environment that is responsive to the circumstances. And Honorable Kabiru said something very striking. These are civilians. The fact that they want to enter the army doesn't make them military people. These are civilians, and they must be treated as civilians. So, if soldiers are comfortable sitting in the sun, civilians cannot be made to sit in the sun. Okay, wait until they come there for your training, then you can do whatever you want to with them. But in the meantime, they are civilians and must be treated as such. But if you see what was going on, if you're a parent and your child is out of school, you and your child had lofty ideas of where he wants to move. Yeah. Eventually, this is where you have to settle. And you watch this child, one time he's running in one direction, and another time, and all of it is because he wants to be saved. And he thinks that if he wants to sit and watch, he might go home tomorrow morning. It is the reason they are all rushing there. And we didn't develop the protocols to ensure that people feel certain in the credibility of the exercise. Because our country, we have tended to believe that everything is our protocol. So sometimes people sit there, who are there, have the intention, the feeling that, look, they have already decided. So let me give it my best shot.
My best shot.
And my best shot means that I should struggle to be in front, not at the back. And that's what it ends up. So I agree with my colleagues that there is a lot to learn from this. Of course, it has taken this tragic incident for us to rethink the way we have recruited our people. Why can't we even have an ongoing recruitment exercise?
Yeah, the Speaker of Parliament mentioned that.
Because the numbers is derived from the budget. We approved the budget in December for implementation in the ensuing year. Why do we have to wait till November?
Then we do one big recruitment exercise.
Exactly. Why can't we have an ongoing exercise? If a person is shortlisted in the system, why don't we have a system that says that today we are looking at a certain number of people, and what we are going to do, if you enter this center, we have an agency that is going to give us all the information we need about you for the military. Even though it is supervised by the military has certified that that institution or individual or organization is capable of providing the level of evidence that the military needs to proceed with the process. Otherwise, if you look at the people who were sitting, how many military people were you finding there?
In fact, from earlier reports, when the youth got to the venue, there were less than 5 military police.
For 21,000.
21,000.
Unpardonable. So yes, I agree with the fact that of course, the minister, it happened at a time that he was also busy with the budget, and all of that. So yes, he would have been overwhelmed. But I do believe that for the military, it is actually an area where it was easy to give another minister the responsibility, whilst you take steps to ensure that you find the right person to take the job. Because the military is an orderly institution, an institution of command, an institution where standard operating procedures are outlined. So having a deputy minister who is stationed at the defense ministry, working through the minister, should be able to address this. But it is all caught up in the weaknesses of the system. And I think that together we must work to see how we can assist not just the military, but all other agencies to improve on the way they implement some of these things to satisfy our people. I think I agree with all of you. I agree with the fact that, it has to take the president to call the shots. And when the president is the one who calls the shot, then the question is, what happened to those that we are paying to do the work on behalf of His Excellency the President? That is a bigger question that I'm sure the committee will find answers to.
Thank you. I mean, there are some messages coming through that brings to the fore some other perspectives, and I would go through it, pick the thoughts of lawyer Victoria Bright on it, and then we go for a short break. This one says, what happened at EL-WAK reflects the value those in authority place on the lives of Ghanaians. It is not rocket science to anticipate that asking such a huge number to congregate at one place will likely lead to a disaster. Sadly, such events happen too frequently. Look at what happened at Presec and Ebri Girls when Form 1 students were going to school. A class action suit must be initiated against the military. Our Insurance Act mandates insurance cover for all places. Does EL-WAK have insurance cover? Accountability, accountability, accountability. People should be sacked and prosecuted. Vic, you think we've gotten there? A class action against the military?
I think a class action against the military will be a bit problematic.
Okay.
Not because it cannot be done, because it can be done. I mean, there's public liability.
Sure.
And actually you're required to have public liability insurance on your premises.
Yes.
And, if you invite me to your premises, you are required to have insurance to protect you if anything happens. So I can understand the sentiments there. I think the problem goes deeper than that. You know, it's a systemic issue. And this whole thing we've been talking about, lack of responsibility, you know, lack of proper organization, lack of respect for our youth, the lives of our youth. Look at the way we treat our youth. You know, so I think the problem goes far deeper than that. And so we need to look beyond the obvious. That's what I would say. It's about unemployment, youth unemployment. Almost 40% of our youth are unemployed. So I would rather we use it as an opportunity to dig deeper into why we keep having these kinds of issues over and over again. You know, it's very tragic, and we can always respond in that kind of way. But I think that people have to do some soul searching. When I say people, I mean the military. They really have to do some serious soul searching. And I don't understand why we don't have a culture of people resigning or taking responsibility, saying, you know, mi culpa, yes, this was my call and I did wrong and I'm resigning. Because when you look at other jurisdictions, people resign for far less. And you even ask yourself, oh, why did they even resign over this issue? But they are principled. And we do need people to become more principled in our society and to take responsibility. And if they are not taking responsibility, then they should be fired. You know, you either go voluntarily
or you are fired.
Or you are fired. And we have to be very decisive about that. You know, because people get away with far too much. And that's why we don't have a culture of accountability in this country. And this permeates across all systems that we have, all our systems. And it has to change, because this society we cannot grow in the right direction if we keep on doing all these bad things. I mean, things which don't help us, things which don't progress us. Other countries are moving on. This is 2025. People are moving forward. And if if you stand still, you're actually regressing. You're going backwards. You know, and not only are we standing still in many areas, we're actually taking steps to regress as a nation. And a lot of people, some of us have a sense of urgency. There are people who are responsible who have a sense of urgency, but there's a whole load of people out there who just think business as usual. And they would do everything to fight the system. They would do everything to fight those who are trying to bring change, positive change into the system. So I think that this kind of thing must not happen again. Those who are responsible should be fired, or they should do the right thing and look at these poor kids who have died and resign. Because I'm sure some of them have children, if not all of them. You know, so for me, that's what I think. And also the compensation thing is important.
You think they should be monetary compensation? Yes,
I think it's not going to bring them back or anything. And I think the gesture that the president made, that, you know, they should nominate one family member to be in the armed forces, I think that's a good thing. But I think that we should also seriously look at some monetary compensation. Listen to the one who was a CBG, who we just talked about, for example. The mother is ill. There's no father figure around. And she was the one helping the mother, and she's gone. So I think we need to look into that as well.
Very well, very well. Finally, before I go for the break, I will not be surprised if EL-WAK is not insured as a stadium, for which reason we can call on the military to probably dig into that insurance cover for those who passed. This should bring back this whole big discussion around insurance on public facilities like this.
Yeah, so I think public facilities, we have the stadia across the country. We have places like EL-WAK, Independence Square, should have insurance. And the insurance should cover not only the events that's organized, but even people who use the place for other purposes. But even more importantly, the organizers of such events must be prepared to insure for any eventuality such as what has happened. And so let's look beyond the military recruitment. We are going into December. We are going to have a lot of musical concerts in public events. Those who are going to organize those events, they should inform other emergency response team. You've never go to an event like, let's say, a musical concert being organized, and there's a standby fire service team. There's a standby ambulance team. I have not seen that. And so our public safety authorities should ensure that as we go into the Christmas season, these things are enforced. So beyond the insurance, we should have emergency response team. So crowds that we are hosting at a place for more than 5,000, there should be a fire tender available. There should be ambulance service available and other emergency response. And it's mandatory. Had available at the time. Because like I said, some of the lives may not have been lost if we had attended to the people in time. So it's not only the insurance. Beyond the insurance, you should have proper emergency response. And I think we should enforce it that you are asking people to pay to attend an event. The reason why you ask people to pay to attend an event or even to go through a recruitment process is to help them with the facilitation. So if I'm paying 200 cedis, I'm expecting that when I come to the event and I'm staying there for about 8 hours, at least I should have a bottle of water. Because a bottle of water costs less than 200 cedis. And so I should have like 2 bottles of water. So if at the end of the day, I don't even get a bottle of water after paying pure water, after paying 200 cedis, that's something that we have underserved the people. So you pay for some of these recruitment exercises and even to go to the embassy or any other place because you go there, sometimes you are served. There's a fridge available, they give you a soft drink, and that's how we respect the people that come to event centers. And I think we should enforce it. So we should enforce the insurance and also enforce that the people pay for emergency response team to be available because you can't carry everybody. And I give a very good example that when we had the May 9th disaster, some people carried their siblings on their back from the Accra Sports Stadium to 37 military hospital because there was no emergency response team available. And even they were, under the circumstance, they could not even respond. And so we should not allow this. So people who are asking for tickets, they are paying VIP tickets sometimes, so you go as high as 2,000 Ghana cedis. And I go there and there's an emergency and you die in the process after paying. That's not really serving the people well. So I think it's something that we should enforce. And we should have authorities that are enforcing it. Because the people pay to use the Accra Sports Stadium, we have them pay to clean up the place, etc. We should also have them pay to ensure that there's insurance service available and also the emergency response.
I think that advice comes in handy. Getting into December, where we'll have a lot of these events. Some few messages, and then we pause for a break. When we come back, we'll deal with the helicopter crash investigative report, which was presented to the National Security Council, chaired by the President. This one says, Obi, Honorable Hajia Ladi's comment regarding the tragic loss of 6 prospective recruits during the Ghana Armed Forces recruitment exercise were reckless, insensitive, and ill-timed. The incident, which resulted in fatalities and injuries, warrants a thorough investigation to determine the cause and prevent future occurrences. Paradoxically, all the 6 deceased were women. As a member of Parliament, it would have been more fitting for Hajia to exercise empathy and caution in her remarks, particularly given the sensitivity of the situation. The focus should have been on supporting the affected families and ensuring that those responsible for the tragedy are held accountable. Amazing convictions. Mancha Bruce II, all the way from Takrade. This one from lawyer Eric Ewudzi Arthur, and he says, Obi, the law mandates an occupier to make his premises safe, to make sure his premises are safe and conducive for other persons. In law, we call that occupier's liability. Is EL-WAK a safe place to accommodate all these persons coming for the training? What were the safety measures put in place to engage these people? The military command must be directly held responsible for the actions of theirs. Lawyer Eric Ewudzi Arthur, thank you. This one says, Obi, the tragedy was completely avoidable and shows a serious lack of planning and foresight. Instead of halting the entire process and holding someone accountable, only the Accra exercise was paused. We deserve better. Proper nationwide safety measures and immediate accountability are urgently needed to prevent this from ever happening again. Gusty Man is in Brikum. This one finally says, Obi, I fully agree with Honorable Isaac Adongo. As a country, we must be forward-looking and minimize excessive partisanship, especially on issues of national importance. This tragedy was avoidable. The world is evolving rapidly, with AI becoming central to problem solving globally. Going forward, not only the military, but all our security agencies must incorporate advanced technology into their recruitment and operations. This is the only way to enhance efficiency, protect lives, and prevent such unfortunate incidents in the future. Musa Abatwa in Asawase, Kumasi. Just so you know, the Interior Ministry just announced that the recruitment process for prospective recruits into the Ghana Police Service, the Ghana Fire Service, the Immigration Service will begin, I think, on the 17th. On the 17th of this month, so 2 days from today. And we hope we will not be here and see what we saw, because I imagine those numbers would even be bigger than what we saw on Wednesday. We'll pause for a short break. When we come back, we'll deal with the helicopter crash report. Stay with us. Welcome back. Newsfile, live on the Joy News channel on Multi TV and live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra, and then Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, on YouTube, and then on Facebook, on all our other social media platforms. We are streaming this show live. My name is Osei Bonsu, and I'm here in the studios with my able panel members helping me to interrogate all the vexed matters. Victoria Bright is an international corporate lawyer and entrepreneur. Yao Apialate, a lawyer and partner, strategy and transactions and Africa infrastructure and capital project leader at Deloitte Africa. Isaac Adongo is the Honourable Member of Parliament for Bolgatanga Central and Chairman of the Finance Committee in Parliament. Dr. Mahama Tia Abdul Kabiru is the MP for Wale constituency and member of the Finance Committee in Parliament as well. Again, this week, as you are aware, the committee set up to investigate the cause of the helicopter crash presented their report to the National Security Council on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, I think they presented it on Monday, and then on Tuesday there was a media briefing to tell the whole country what may have caused this unfortunate disaster. Amongst other things, the lead investigator made the point that what may have caused the disaster was a sudden and powerful downdraft. And also, the Z9 aircraft involved, according to the investigators, was serviceable and airworthy at the time of the incident. But the absence of certain critical safety systems may have reduced the crew's situational awareness during the flight. We ask, beyond this report, what next? This time I'll start with you, Honorable Adongo. What do you think? Do you think beyond this, I mean, should it be the end of the story? So yes, it's been investigated, a report has been issued, we all go back to sleep, business as usual?
Well, the good thing is that we know what happened.
Okay.
Serious lessons have been learned, and if you listen to the budget that was presented, you would have noticed that already steps are being taken
to retool the armed forces.
I am aware that the Minister for Defense has been to France a number of times prior to the budget, and in my conversations with him, he had told me that he had the instruction of His Excellency to do everything possible to retool the armed forces. So, quite clearly, a lot of work has been done to make sure that we have the right capacity, to protect our armed forces, and also not to have these incidents once again. But again, the maintenance culture, even though we are told that it was airworthy, we have not been told exactly what were those issues that didn't give them adequate, protection in terms of their own situational awareness. And I do believe that the ones that are being brought in would have better capacity to address some of those concerns. So yes, a lot is being done. There is a deliberate effort to retool the armed forces. I know that the previous government also did its part, but it's an ongoing process. And we do believe that with the kind of messages I've heard from the Minister for Defense, particularly to do with the interests of His Excellency in getting a very worthy armed forces, we would see a very drastic improvement in the equipment that they are using and the capacity that we need to deliver to them to protect us.
Yeah. Honorable Kabiru, what do you think? I mean, listening to the lead investigator, I was a bit confused. I mean, it was a message laced with a lot of military jargons. So when you read what he actually said, and for the benefit of our listeners, I would want to read as the central cause of what may have happened. Very, very interesting in terms of the language used. He said, the investigation determined that the accident was caused by the sudden loss of altitude and lift due to downdraft. This loss of altitude without change in power or pitch attitude is consistent with downdraft associated with changing environmental conditions over high terrain. When I read it, I was like, what is this guy talking about? But in simple terms, it was because of what they call a sudden and powerful downdraft. And I have a pilot friend who told me, because of the range in the Adansi area, you know, it's mountainous. And at the time of the morning, it was a bit foggy, you know. So when you don't have clear view, it may lead you to where you don't want to get to. And helicopters are unable to go high like a normal aeroplane would do. So flying through a mountainous area in a foggy environment creates a lot of problems. And that's essentially what this whole thing is about. What do you think?
Yeah, unfortunately, the report hasn't helped much.
Really?
Because we know that whenever a helicopter is going to crash, there's going to be loss of altitude.
Sure.
I mean, every lay person knows that a helicopter crashing, there's a loss of altitude. Yeah. Either a sudden or progressive loss of altitude. They have just told us that it was sudden downward draft. So that's what I'm saying, that the report hasn't helped much. One, I expect that they would have gone beyond the technical to look at the social. What was the psychological framework of the pilots at the time that they were using the aircraft?
Would they know?
They should, because they will be talking to families, they will be talking to their doctors, they will be talking to people. They should know. You see, so it is technical, but the good people of Ghana they are not interested in those technical jargons. Because they want to, even if you are saying there was a sudden loss of altitude, you have not told us what caused the loss of altitude. Was it a mechanical fault or was it a human error? You get it? They have not told us what conversation problem might have transpired. Some of them could be security issue they may want to go, but there was the black box I'm told was recovered. Yeah. Nothing in the report has made reference
to what was contained in the black box.
Because the pilot probably would have said that due to A, B, C, D, we're experiencing some turbulence, maybe brace up your seatbelts and whatever. All that would give the good people of Ghana an insight as to what problems transfer. Remind you, I'm making this point, and sternly so, because the loss of those particular lives was actually something that was a huge blow. And in a year, apart from this EL-WAK, stampede, that is the first major thing. We lost colleagues. We lost friends. And people lost families.
Yeah.
Up to now, so even, I'm just imagining if I were a member of the family, even as a friend and as a colleague, I'm wondering whether this report will make me go to sleep knowing what might have caused the death of my friend. With the grace of God, I don't think the report is enough to tell the good people of Ghana, to tell families that my husband, my brother died because of sudden loss of altitude or a downward draft. And that downward draft was caused by what? Again, they have mentioned in the report that, you see, there were certain state-of-the-art security features that probably were absent in the
helicopter,
or in the helicopter, that probably did not give them institutional awareness of what they were going through. They need to tell us, so that when we are approving even the helicopter they want to buy, we want to be sure whether there are those security
all those
features.
security features are in there.
Even as a lay person, right? Because we'll be guided by this history. We will know that, okay, this accident that happened, we will at all times be asking questions because, like my senior colleague said, we need to learn from experience. So when an issue of this nature is presented to you as a committee to investigate, go beyond the technicalities and simplify the report and answer the lingering question of everyday Ghanaian, the man on the street. What are their concerns? All what they knew is that a helicopter crashed and their loved ones perished. That is what they know. They will want to know, okay, like I said, no helicopter will crash without losing altitude. That is common. That is commonsensical, right? But what would have caused the loss of altitude is what the investigation should center on. And I think that maybe aspects of the report, with the grace of
it will be the weather, obviously.
Yes, I've not read the full report, so I will want to give them the benefit. But I think that in giving the updates to the good people of Ghana, they ought to focus on those, because those are the things that we are interested in. If it's the weather, let us know, okay, like you said, like your friend mentioned, it's a good reason why maybe a helicopter will suddenly lose altitude. For instance, there can be a cloud even approaching. The cloud approaching means that he may want to swerve the cloud. We all use helicopters and we use aircraft. That probably would have caused possibly a swerve or a loss of altitude because the craft is not able to recover. Because in their report, they are saying that they were not able to regain the upward altitude. Right? So I think that that is where I have my uneasiness with the report. I respect the technical expertise of the people who were commissioned to do this investigation. I'm even told the United States Air Force helped assisted us with the investigation. But it also gives an indication that the investigation is not concluded. Because I think that this may be a preliminary report. And my expectation is that the president would have to ensure that a complete and thorough investigation is done on this issue. Look, beyond what has been presented, because there are still questions. Like I said, the social part of it. Every single person on the flight would have to be profiled if we are serious. Every single person, the activities of the people before the event, the activities of the people, even sometimes, even a month to the event. That is where a serious investigation will have to focus on. That the manifest included some people, those people they came into contact with, what were their mental states as of the time that they were even engaged in this. Then we then come to the flight. But for now, they are only focusing on the aircraft. And even with the helicopter. And even with the helicopter, they are not telling us, there are many questions than answers. They are not even telling us, okay, sudden loss of altitude. What caused the loss of altitude? Was it a mechanical fault with the flight? Was it an issue of the weather? Was it an issue of human error? We will need those answers so that even in our attempt to learn, we would put all that in our experiences and learn from them. With the grace of God, we have some insight now. That insight, to me, is what I already know. Even as a layman. Because a helicopter will not crash without losing altitude. Okay, so I need to know more in order to inform whether or not we can learn from this experience. But like I said, this should not bring closure to the matter. We should not think that we can go to sleep. I agree that part of the government effort to retool the military, the Air Force, speaks broadly to the issue of making the security of our country. But we are told that the aircraft was not was serviceable.
Yeah, it was serviceable.
Yes.
It was airworthy.
Airworthy.
Yeah.
So the issue, except to say that it didn't have some security
features. Sure.
So the issue generally, general conclusion is that the helicopter was airworthy and that it could be used. But the better it would have been if it had ABCD.
Yeah.
So that means that it met the minimum standard to be used in our airspace. That's just the conclusion of it. That the helicopter met the minimum standard to be used. So the purchase of helicopters is not a solution, or is not a solution to avert what has happened. It will support, I agree, but it is not a solution to avert, and we shouldn't use the death of this these gallant Ghanaians to say we are buying helicopters, because the purchase of helicopters is not the solution. Because the report itself says that the helicopter was airworthy, it was serviceable. So it means that we can even buy the same helicopters, new helicopters, and we'll still have that incidents. Yeah,
but the committee strongly recommended that we modernize the fleet of the Ghana Air Force.
Modernize? That is upgrading the security features.
And it says we should even acquire modern aircraft with modern navigation system. That was the recommendation.
Yes. And I'm saying that we can still do that, and we'll still have. We don't pray for such, and we pray against the occurrence of sin. But I'm saying that recommendation are consequential to the whole report. But the government of their report says that the helicopter was airworthy, it was serviceable, though it would have been good that it has certain state-of-the-art security features, which it didn't have. They fell short of telling us what those security features were. Even if they mention it, we may not understand, but we will appreciate that they did a thorough work. They are again telling us that, government should ensure retooling and modernizing our air fleet. I agree that as part of the whole issue to make sure that we are air prepared for the defense of the country, we need to have state and modern, equipment and infrastructure to support that. But I don't think that the report should bring closure to this issue, because there are answers that families of the deceased have not gotten as friends. We've not gotten, as citizens we have not gotten, and the government will have to come more detail.
I think you should say you have not gotten. Nobody has asked you to come and tell us what Ghanaians are thinking.
I'm representing. I'm representing the people of Wale.
I'm also representing the people of Wale. Bring closure. So speak about yourself. Don't speak for Ghanaians.
No, with the grace of a senior.
The issue is that bring closure. You can't force to open.
Okay.
I'm not saying that what has. Let me just clear. I'm not saying that what has happened. Some people will not be satisfied with the report.
Yeah.
I have raised questions. Unless, of course, my senior is providing me answers to those questions.
So we answer, you bring another more. Then for how long?
No, I'm not bringing more. When I answer, I'm satisfied with the answer, I'm good.
You'd
they are genuine.
Appreciate the answers.
Yeah, they are genuine questions to raise.
Very well. Yeah, let me hear you on this and the recommendations thereof from the report.
So I think I'll also try and then talk through some of the findings from the committee. And maybe to start with, I commend the government for setting up a committee. And beyond that, having a committee present the report publicly. We've had instances where committees have been set for fires in the past that we don't even have.
We don't hear anything from them.
So I think we must commend the government for that. And maybe to add or to help honorable member, I think the report mentioned whether assess human error, weather, and then lastly, mechanical. They ruled out human error because they had assessed the medical and psychological report of the pilot, the technical officer, and the co-pilot. And they said they were in good condition and there were no psychological issues for the 3 crew members, so members of the crew. So I think that was ruled out because they had also spoken to people who were closely connected with them. And they said all 3 of them were calm before they took off. So I think that assessment was done and the human error was ruled out. Also on the mechanical issue, there was no mechanical issue. I think the only issue I have there is that the aircraft or the helicopter was due for servicing in May.
In May?
In May 2020.
Meaning it was not done.
but then they requested for an extension from the manufacturer to August. Which means that if we have any aircraft or helicopter that's due for servicing, we should do it, as opposed to requesting for extension. Because potentially, if your car is due for servicing, you could ignore it and use it for your number of, but then you will still putting yourself at risk. So when it was due for servicing and you requested for extension, if we had the opportunity, I think we should not even have requested for extension in the first place. Because for aircraft, the risk is very high. And so you don't even run it like a vehicle. You have to go for the servicing. I
probably the servicing would have brought to the fore the issues with the security features and all of that.
Which is why and sometimes the same aircraft can be upgraded.
Sure.
So we could have brought in those equipment or advanced warning system that we are requesting for now, and then done that before putting it into use. So they settled on the weather, and obviously for our part of the world, the weather plays a critical role. Talking to some aviation experts, of course I'm not a pilot, but talking to some aviation experts, I think one of the advice one of the things they say they were taught in school as a pilot is that when it comes to the forces of nature, don't take chances. You could easily be killed, or you could kill the people on board if you take chances with the forces of nature. So acts of God are things you don't take chances with. So if you go, there's a cloud, if you have the opportunity to avoid it, avoid it. And I think on that day, there were reports that there was another helicopter that took off, that had an emergency. There was another one that came back. So it means that we had a discretion not to have even taken off in the first place, because the forces of nature were there and they could also pose risk factors. And so for anybody who is an aviation expert, they advise that when you have acts of God, avoid it. And the person gave me a very good example of where he was on board a flight. It landed at the Lusaka airport. As soon as it touched down, 2 seconds after it touched down, the pilot took off again. He didn't say anything. People were screaming. And then the pilot went and then landed safely. After he landed safely, he informed the passengers that as soon as he touched the runway, he saw a rat on the runway. He couldn't take chances with that because you didn't know what that rat could do to the aeroplane. So he decided to take off and avoid the rat. The second instance where you have swarm of birds, don't run into it. If you run into it, one of them could enter the engine catches fire, that's it. So whenever you have any acts of nature or force of nature,
you don't take chances.
Advise that you don't take chances. And I think that's the thing, that it ended up being the weather that we are being advised that please do not take chances with these things, because the advanced warning system, yes, it will help, but we had an option to cancel the flight, because it was reported that one of the ministers was supposed to have used a commercial flight, gone to Kumasi, and joined the Ashanti regional minister. So if he had cancelled the flight, all the members on board could have gone for that option. So at any point in time when we have discretion, we should empower our pilots to exercise discretion that, Honorable Minister, we cannot go on this flight. Let's cancel it. And for most advanced countries, that's what they do. Remember in 2010, there was volcanic eruption somewhere in Iceland. And that caused a lot of flights. About 40,000 flights were cancelled in 8 days. Why couldn't he have taken the risk? And these are advanced countries. They could have done things to avoid it. But you see, that's the same point we were making, that when visibility is impaired, you have to cancel the flight, and they won't take chances. So I think for us as a country, we should empower our pilots. We should also take discretion and say that, look, a flight that was supposed to take off at 8 a.m., we waited until 9:12 before taking off. It means that we assessed the weather, we realized there was some risk, and then instead of cancelling the flight entirely, we decided to still go, even though the conditions were hazy. And
the lead investigator made the point that on the day of the flight, the visibility was much worse. Eyewitness accounts indicate it dropped as low as 200 meters at some point. So that was really, really terrible.
And so, and I think over and above that, when we empower our pilots and the crew to advise on condition and take discretion, it also borders on things around mechanical issues. So recently, Air India had a crash, and as soon as the aeroplane took off, it started descending. And initial in the investigation, there was an error somewhere by the pilot. He touched something that he was not supposed to have touched, and that's caused it. And so for pilots, I think issues around mechanical issues, you have to clear before you move. And after they've taken off, like the example I've given, they have the discretion to decide on what to do. And I give you a very good example. I was returning from Kenya to Ghana, and sometime when we go to Yaoundé in Cameroon, the pilot said he had to make an emergency landing in Yaoundé. So when we got down, he told us that he noticed that the fuel in the aircraft was not enough to take us to Accra. So he made an emergency landing in Yaoundé, Cameroon, refueled, and continued to Accra. And I shared it with my friends, and one of them said, look, when it comes to aviation, there's no 1 gallon pilot. Yeah. You can't do 1 gallon. He knows that when he takes, because he can't do 1 gallon, park somewhere in the space and then go for refuel and then come. No. And so the pilot knew that he couldn't take chances. So imagine, yes, he would have taken him to Accra, but after arriving in Accra, there is crisis. He has to wait for, and then he drops. So when it comes, so the pilot was so smart that, and before we did the emergency landing, we stayed in the air for about 30 minutes. And that's why he was burning the fuel to make it light to land. And I said, then you should have continued to Accra. Why would you burn the fuel? Said, look, they don't take chances. When there is a risk, even the minimal risk, they will go for the safest option, which is what we should do at all times. We encourage and empower pilots that, look, tell the president that the aircraft cannot take off. And so maybe you have a conference to attend the UN, let's cancel it. Because for us as a country, lives matter than even attending the conference or events.
It's true. I think you raised a very, very important point. But Vic, do you find this report exhaustive and that the country can say, okay, well done to the investigators, let's move on with our lives, or we still need to do something more?
I think we do need to commend the president and the investigators and Captain Fojero for leading this for all of us. So I think that we have to do. But I have some questions in my mind. Who made the choice to purchase these aircrafts without relevant avionics safety equipment? Who made that decision? And was someone cutting corners, or were there genuine financial constraints in the military's coffers, and therefore their hands were effectively tied? And will the same people be put in place to buy the new equipment? So these are things. One of the things we have learned from this report is that there was no information on the weather, on the flight route available to the pilot. So they knew what was happening in Accra, they knew what was happening in Kumasi, but in between, he was basically flying blind, effectively. And it crashed 12 days to its 90-day expiry period. But we understand that although an extension was sought, the manufacturer actually gave the permission to have that extension. And as a layperson, I'm seeing things like autopilot function. The autopilot function was missing. That seems to me to be so basic. Autopilot and simulation training, the fact that they are recommending that we do this means that we don't currently do it. I remember as far back as maybe 25 years ago or so, I was working back then on contracts to do simulation training for the Ministry of Defense for the UK, for the RAF pilots. So, I mean, why are we now in a position where we are being recommended to start simulation training? I mean, why? And it's also making me wonder whether we have these safety things on our commercial flights, the domestic ones.
The domestic ones.
Going from Accra to Kumasi, Accra to Tamale and all that. We really need to, somebody has to actually...
audit all of this.
Yeah, audit all of them. All those small planes that are flying us all over the country, they all need to be audited because right now the focus is on the military jets. But we really have to look at the commercial jets now because a lot of people rely on those. And the saddest part of all this is that they're saying that if these safety measures had been in place, the thing, this tragic accident, this tragedy would have been, could have been prevented. So I think it's important that we follow through and with the recommendations and not just, it shouldn't disappear somewhere. We need to be updated on whether they've been done and the timelines. We need to know about the timelines. And my point is somebody must have known about all of this, that these helicopters were not up to scratch. Somebody somewhere knows about this. And as usual, that person is faceless. You know, in Ghana, the same thing. No accountability, no responsibility. The person is hiding somewhere in the system. And then the system is blamed. And that's it.
And all of this has got to do with the Ghana Armed Forces.
All of this has got to do with the Ghana Armed Forces. Unfortunately, the first two topics today that we've been talking, and they've all ended up in tragedy. So there have to be serious questions asked about all of this, and we have to follow it through and make sure. And there's an act, actually, Act 1028, which deals with aircraft accident and incident investigation prevention. And there's a bureau, and there's a person who is supposed to be the commissioner for all of this. So I don't know if we've heard from him. Maybe we have, and I haven't heard. But I don't know if any of you here have heard.
A member of the bureau was part of the committee.
Yes,
a member of the bureau was part of it.
But he is the substantive commissioner. So I guess I'm asking whether in his own capacity and in his own office, and under this act and the responsibilities that he has under this act, whether he's spoken to us as Ghanaians, either before the report or subsequently since the report has been established. We need to hear from him. I don't even know whether people know who he is. You know, I don't know who he is. And
I don't know.
Yeah, so we need to know who he is, and he needs to come and talk to us and assure us, because I would like to think that he's the one who will be updating us with the implementation, that this is what we've done, this is where we are, now our armed forces are fine, because he's tasked with investigating these things and preventing these things. So that is what I think. The commercial flights.
Yeah, we should begin, somebody should begin auditing.
We don't want any more Ghanaian lives to be lost, please.
And these commercial flights actually fly a lot of people in
a lot of people, and I don't know how well maintained they are. There was one that just kept cancelling flights all over the place recently. You know? So, and then they'll say, "Oh, it's fuel." Then, "Oh, it's not fuel. It's something." We need to.
Yeah, I mean, I think this disaster should really make us wake up, and because interestingly, when it's about air disaster, your chances of survival. Almost.
You are gone.
Yeah, you're gone.
I mean, forget all that, the words that the air hostesses tell us. It's just a psychological. I mean, if it happens, you're gone.
But I think in India, there was a survivor, right?
But he was on the ground, wasn't he?
Oh, he was.
No, he was part of the.
Yeah, there was one survivor.
He survived. But that's about hundreds of people killed and just one person.
You call God.
Yes.
But
we've done 46 minutes after. 46 minutes after 10. This is Newsfile on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. We'll pause for a very short break. When we come back, we'll quickly deal with the approval of the CJ nominee, His Lordship Justice Paul Bafo Boni, and then we spend the rest of the time on the 2026 budget. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Newsfile on the Joy News channel. We'll quickly move to our next issue, and already, I mean, our appetite is wet for the budget proper. So we'll be getting into the budget conversations very, very soon. But one thing happened in Parliament even before the budget was presented, and that's how come the budget presentation came that late. Because the CJ nominee had to be approved. The report from the appointment committee was ready. It was laid before Parliament at a plenary. Debates happened on the report, and then it came down to the approval, and that's where the issues started. And even before that, the minority had staged a walkout during the vetting of the CJ nominee. Honorable Kabiru, where was the minority going with all of this?
Yeah, so thank you. The issue with the nomination of Mr. Honorable
Paul Bafo Boni.
Justice Paul Bafo Boni as Chief Justice had his basis on the fact that Mrs. Tokono was removed as the Chief Justice pursuant to Article 146 of the Constitution. That whole Article 146 procedure for the removal of Chief Justice has been challenged by several people. Currently, as we speak, we have not less than about 8 cases on different fora that the people are objecting to the removal of the Chief Justice. The basis for the removal of Chief Justice was based on the fact that a so-called stated misbehavior pursuant to the petition filed with the president by one Daniel Ofori. Daniel Ofori allegations were actually determined with an allegation or alleged breach of the procedures as contained in Article 146. Because as Tokono herself is saying, instead of 1464, she came under 1466 or 7 thereabout, because there was no prima facie determination, and the prima facie determination, she would have the right to be heard. In the prima facie determination, she was not given that right to be heard. That brings the question whether or not her removal was constitutional. That said, we are of the view that Parliament has the right to approve a nomination if there is a vacancy for that matter. And within our standing orders, you can only go in and vet. You cannot be Minister for Finance and you are vetting an appointment for minister, irrespective of the fact that it's been referred to you by the president. So if in the estimation, in the wisdom of Parliament, there is the view that going on with an activity is likely to cause constitutional crisis. For a moment, let's think. If the case before the ECOWAS Parliament for human rights by Gertrude Tokono is successful, what becomes of the position of the Chief Justice if he is confirmed? And we cannot have two Chief Justices. Now, one will say that by operation of law, there was nothing to start with. So you cannot put something on nothing. Yeah. Because there was not a position created, because her removal was not constitutional, was illegal. So Mr. Bafo-Boni appointment couldn't have, be standing the test of time. But the question would then is, are you going to remove him as Chief Justice, or you say that he was not Chief Justice to start with? So to avoid all this confusion, the minority holds the view that, look, the position of a Chief Justice... But
if the minority was minded by the ruling of the Supreme Court in Ekwasi-Fua versus the Attorney General, the court was clear that when it comes to the performance of a constitutional function, the only forum that can stay the hands of the person performing such function should be the Supreme Court. And until the court expressly says so, nobody can stop, the occupant of a constitutional position from functioning as it was.
You see, Vincent Ekwo Asafo versus the Attorney General has not been determined. It is the procedural or interlocutory matter that was determined. That's the issue of the injunction.
Sure. Okay. But the court used that to make the position clear.
That's what I'm saying. And that is, the court needed to determine the substantive case for us to know whether or not her removal, because that is the appropriate forum he was.
Yes.
So the choice of jurisdiction is not in question. That Mr. Asaf was at the Supreme Court stating that the removal process of Tokono was illegal is at the right forum. So he was actually being at the right forum. But there was an interlocutory matter, or an issue of injunction, whether he could injunct. And that's what the court was of the view that, look, was the Constitution, so in the spirit of separation of powers, entrust a certain mandate on someone to perform, the court cannot. And they also use the Justice Abdullahi case, which is also recent, to support the fact that once the Constitution has given someone role to play, it's not for the court to, take away that particular rule from it. It is in the exercise. If you're of the view that the exercise is done in a manner that is unconstitutional, then you don't come for that basis to challenge it. But in the course of performing the duty, you cannot injunct the person, so the president cannot be injuncted from performing his duty. That's the argument of the court.
So if the president has performed his duty of issuing the warrant to dismiss the Chief Justice and nominated a new Chief Justice, it presupposes that there is a vacancy, and that's how come the president has done that.
That is the assumption or the presumption of the president in this regard. But as an organ of government, and so as people who make this particular law, and people who are supposed to respect this law, do we have to think like the president? For crying out loud, we are not stooges of the president.
Sure.
We are not, an appendage of the president. Even where the president, there's a feeling in Parliament the president is going wayward. It is for Parliament, which is the conscience of the nation, to step in and hold the president's break, right? It is in that spirit that the minority says that, look, the office of the Chief Justice is not in effective sense vacant. There's an acting Chief Justice who can perform the role of the Chief Justice, so-called, except that he's not the Chief Justice, because acting Chief Justice is not the Chief Justice. But he can perform any other role that the Chief Justice would have been performing. Why don't you let the person act? If Mrs. Tokono the opportunity to litigate her matter to his conclusion, why are we in a hurry when the person is actually, is before you or before the laws of the country to ventilate or to make sure that her issues are redressed? Mind you, we're also drawing the Speaker attention to the fact that the lawyers call the sub judice rule. A matter pending before court that if you take a decision could prejudice the interest of the people in court, you should avoid taking that matter. And our standard rules have provided for such that if in your opinion that we take an action which is going to prejudice an interest of a party before the cause or before the laws of the country, stop taking that decision. So the minority making this argument and saying that, look, there are laws. Apart from this case, there is also the case filed by the Center for Citizenship for Constitutionality and then Systems. There are several, even there are high court cases where her right, fundamental human right, the right to be heard, she's alleging that
she was not given
the right to be heard. And this is so common. This is so common that even if you are not a lawyer, you know that even if you go to the Chief Palace with your case, before the chief will make a determination of the matter, he will ask, what do you have to say about the allegation? She's not been given that opportunity. She feels that the process was biased. And we all, using Mr. Paul Bafobane, we hold the view that he's also a conflicted personality. And that being conflicted in this regard, he ought to have also hastened slowly. Why is he conflicted? He is the acting Chief Justice. He is supposed to ensure speedy trial of cases. He is supposed to direct, if he's not directing, the registrar to schedule cases, the registrar of the court to schedule cases. If the registrar is not doing so, he holds the ultimate responsibility to case it. Again, Mr. Bafobone was the person who sat on the case by Vincent.
That threw out the injunction.
Throwing out the injunction. Basically, one will not but to think that there's a clear conflict of interest because you are the ultimate beneficiary of the fact that the woman should not return. So, putting all this together, we feel like the president could have done it more, even if he wanted to remove the Chief Justice, do it within the dictates of the law. But you see, if you have a president promising the good people of Ghana before even elections, and the party functionaries saying it boldly without remorse, that given opportunity, we are going to remove the Chief Justice. And that the government, when the government came to power, the first thing they were doing was to rape the sanctity of the judiciary. The first thing they could do was to say that the Article 127 of the Constitution do not matter more, which guarantees the independence of the judiciary. And that the government could set a bad precedent. My only worry, as an ordinary Ghanaian.
What did the government do in setting the bad precedents you talk about?
They have opened the floodgate that anyone can come with any trivial issue to occasion the removal of a Chief Justice. What is the breach of law? The stated misbehavior. What is the authority to determine whether an act is a stated misbehavior? The Constitution hasn't defined it, but we can go to previous, Commission of Inquiries. You are talking of moral turpitude. Has he said any of her conduct constitute moral turpitude? We are talking of grave lapse of judgment. Which of her conduct constitute grave lapse of judgment?
But the Constitution set out how the prima facie will be determined.
The prima facie,
and that process was followed.
And that process was opaque, and that there are no even, that's why CJ Wood, Sophia Akufo, actually is advocating for a regulation to guide Article 146 of the Constitution. Because it gives any what do you call, mischievous precedent on opportunity. And that's what I'm saying. I'm just afraid that any Chief Justice can be removed without cause. If Mrs. Tokono is made to face this, I am clear in my mind that any Chief Justice of the Republic will be removed
at any
time by any allegation that probably will be brought, and you say, damn, any consequences. If you come to the court, the acting Chief Justice will impanel people and say that they should throw it away. Is that how we want to subject the judiciary to? Look, I have my issues with the judiciary.
You wrap up for me.
I have my issues with the judiciary. And they are personal issues. And I feel like we need to address them to ensure that the only arbiter, the only way that I can go for justice, if a so-called powerful man is coming after me, is the judiciary. And that in the wisdom of the framers of the Constitution, we need to have a judiciary that would actually protect everyone, irrespective of your station in life. We don't want to subject such an institution to the whims and caprices of the executive. Neither do we want to subject it to Parliament. We know the case of State versus Ochery, what Nkrumah did. We are in this country, we read about these things. We have come from a long history of where the judiciary was under attack, the judiciary could not perform its role, and we have moved from that. And the 1992 Constitution has also in a dawn of constitutional supremacy.
Very well.
So that is the issues that the minority have about it. And we think that it's not proper. We feel that Mr. Bafoboni is conflicted. We feel that Justice Tokono was not treated fairly, and that a bad precedent, the floodgates have been opened, and that any justice, Supreme Court, Chief Justice is a candidate for removal.
Very well. Honorable Adongo, where do you stand on this? The majority, voted in support of the approval, quite overwhelming, 163 to 69.
The approval of his nomination overwhelmingly by the Parliament of Ghana. All these matters, the Speaker has ruled on them.
The matters raised by...
Yes, the Speaker delivered a communication to Parliament and addressed all these issues. But a child who will cry, if you want to fry all the eggs in this world and give to that child, you say that why is the eggs too much? So we can understand where they are coming from. We're in this country where the judiciary was very predictable. Everybody knew that. That even your passport could not guarantee you your citizenship in this country. Why? Our Constitution knows. Well, it started with your passport. When they said you couldn't register to vote with your passport.
Ghana had.
And that the health insurance card.
Your own passport. And
then it came to birth.
Go and check the constitutional instrument. The passport was replaced with just the Ghana card.
The Ghana card, sure.
In this country, when you are traveling out of your country, what signifies your nationality? Is it not your passport? Mm-hmm. But that doesn't give you the right to vote in our country. And this was a 4-0 type of judiciary, and they were celebrating it. Today, they are the ones crying. Look, His Excellency the President himself can go to, can have a petition against him after winning an election. Mm-hmm. But we still swear him in.
Yes.
Okay? Have we prejudiced the outcome of the constitutional process, the process?
The election petition presidential.
Because we have sworn in the president? If the court so decides that he was not properly elected and give directives, that swearing in is null and void. Mm-hmm. Is that not so?
That's so.
So, if we swear in a Chief Justice and you go through the process, all the cases that you have, you can bring 1,001 abuse of process. They will be determined. And if they determine that you have a case and give directives, you lose nothing. Is that not the case?
Yes.
So if Justice Bonnie The case of Tokono is so determined, and the court gives directives that he was not properly appointed. What happens? We go back to the status quo.
Sure.
So what does Tokono lose? So now, we have an acting minister for defense. So there's no vacancy there, because there's somebody who is acting. Is that your understanding of who an acting Chief Justice is?
No, that's not what we said, sir.
No, you are saying why are we in a hurry? There's no vacancy. Who says there's no vacancy? There is vacancy at the Ministry of Environment, but there's somebody acting. Is there no vacancy?
There is a vacancy.
There is a vacancy at the judiciary. Somebody is acting. There is a vacancy at Defense Ministry because somebody is acting. Why is it that those other ones, there are vacancies? But in the case of the Chief Justice, an acting is not a vacancy. I just can't understand. You don't need a lawyer to stretch your imagination. Look, they are crying over nothing. And the 1,001 cases in court are just abuse of the process. And we cannot allow any Tom, Dick, and Harry to go to court to injunct Parliament to exercise its own constitutional mandate. Especially when its mandate being exercised does not deny your right if eventually you succeed. So you cannot go around fishing for cases and fishing for people to come to court and think that that will stop Parliament from conducting its own legitimate activities. And the Speaker has made it very clear that he is not going to sit there and recognize some abuse of processes so that we can stop working. He's done his work. The rest is left to the judiciary. Go there and prosecute your case. You can bring all the best lawyers in the world. Go and win for Tokono, and then there will be consequential directives. In the absence of that, if the president swears in Justice Paul Bafuboni, he is the Chief Justice, so properly nominated, so properly approved by Parliament, and so properly sworn in.
You don't find his point about the Chief Justice nominee being conflicted an issue?
What conflict?
The fact that the cases pending in court, if determined, may have an effect on whether...
Listen, in the court of the hawk.
Interest is a statement of fact. It's not a conjecture. That you say so doesn't make him conflicted. That the minority says he's conflicted doesn't become the fact.
Okay.
It's a matter of law.
Yes.
So go to court and go and say that the Chief Justice is conflicted.
And the Chief Justice is the one going to determine whether it's conflicted or not. That's the point.
Unfortunately, that's our system.
That is how it is.
What are you saying? What are you saying? So because of that, you want to reconstruct our constitution. You want to reconstruct our constitution and to make Kabiru the Chief Justice because the Chief Justice is conflicted, so that a non-conflicted person determines who is empaneled. It doesn't happen like that. In our country, were we not here when an EC boss was removed for frivolous reasons? Were we not in this country? It didn't set the precedent for removal of future EC bosses. Did it? Did it?
No.
Has the current EC boss been removed?
No.
So where is the Pandora box? That you are prosecuting your case and all you are doing is reducing what is a judicial process into holding of press conferences doesn't change the fact. And the amount of shouting on top of the roof doesn't change the constitutional process. And I can tell you that if Tokono has a case and she truly wins, she has nothing to lose.
Very well, very well.
Yeah, but,
let me thank you. Because of time, I'll come back to you. Just give me some few minutes. Let me hear from the two lawyers we have here, and then I'll come back to you. Lawyer Vic, maybe I'll start with you. What do you think with the minority's position on this matter?
See, I have said, I have made my views known on this whole Article 146 procedure and the President's actions. I do not see anything wrong with the President's actions.
Okay.
But he's mandated to take certain steps. And I don't see how, because when you look at the construction of the article, it uses the word shall.
Sure.
So what is he supposed to do? You know, if we don't like Article 146, that's a different discussion, and there are flaws in it. There's a constitutional review commission going on, committee going on now, and they can look at that article in detail to see whether we like the way it works or not. You know, so as long as we have it in the way in which we have it, I don't think any president should be flawed in actually following through with the process. So that's that with Article 146. Now, this we have heard, and we've heard from Honorable Adongutu, who was in Parliament, that the Speaker has ruled on all these matters. So that is it. And we know from all the various decisions, including the most recent ones, that unless you have an explicit judgment or order from the Supreme Court, then you can't stop the executive or Parliament from continuing with its business. Otherwise, you are holding up governance in very, very key arms of government. We have 3 of them. You know, so if you are abusing the process or putting that will paralyze rather one arm of government, then it's a very serious matter. Are we to wait for ECOWAS to decide on whether our Parliament should proceed or not? You know, we need to really pause and think about this, because it's prone, the system as it is, and I'm not suggesting anyone is trying to abuse, but the system as it is prone to abuse. So somebody has to put their foot down, and we have to respect what the Supreme Court says, which is that if you don't have an explicit judgment or order from them, then nothing can stop the other
performance of a constitutional function.
From going on. We cannot be sitting here and be allowing ECOWAS to decide whether our Parliament moves or not. So we need to sometimes take the politics out of all these things and step back and look at the actual implications of these things. You know, nobody wants a system where any Chief Justice can just be removed willy-nilly. No, nobody wants that. And if we really genuinely believe that we have opened the floodgates to that kind of thing, I think the whole country, it won't, whether you are NDC, MPP, everybody will get up and be in arms. But for some reason, it's just the minority talking about this. Plus, of course, the former Chief Justice. I want to just say that I wish the minority had been in Parliament to question Justice Bafo-Boni on all the things that they are concerned about. So
they shouldn't have walked out from the
No, they should have asked him these things, and he would have then had an opportunity to explain it to them. And if they were not satisfied, they could have asked more questions. But you were not there. You chose to walk away. And the process continued, as I believe it should have continued. And now there's an outcome, and you are now complaining that this and that. You should have been there. Because whether anybody likes it or not, Justice Bafo-Boni is now the substantive Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana. And he is in charge of the judiciary. Whether you're an MPP person or an NDC person, you are going to appear in court before him. If you have a matter in the courts, he is ultimately the one in charge of that process. So it is, I think it's a disservice to their constituents that they didn't show up to represent them in Parliament on that matter. And it's regrettable that they didn't show up. I wish they had. And I want to congratulate the Chief Justice, you know, on
Very well. Yeah, what do you think finally on this? We are really running against time.
Yeah, so I guess for us, just taking off from what Senior has just said, we should respect the laws and the processes that we set for ourselves at any point in time. I think what's important for us as a country, we will take lessons from history. A very good example is in 1992, after the elections, the opposition refused to go to Parliament. And it followed the stolen verdict and others. What we lost was the quality of debate that we would have expected if the opposition had gone to Parliament. And it was 1996 was a clear reflection of it. When they went to Parliament, we see the quality of debate and the kind of laws that were passed. And so where we have an instance where minority decide not to participate in the process, we lose the benefit of the quality of the scrutiny that would have come out if they had stayed or they participated in the process. So I think for us as a country, yes, we may have some issues, but we should not give the opportunity, or we should not allow these things to fall through, because ultimately, if and when the Chief Justice nominee is now approved, it's sworn in, she's going to take judicial decisions and it's going to affect all of us. But I think what is even more comforting is that the Chief Justice nominee, as he then was, admitted that if there's any judicial ruling that affects his role, he's ready to respect it. And that's something that for us we should have comfort in, that if he's ready to respect it, being the ECOWAS court, the Supreme Court, he's ready to respect it. And so if that's the case, then we participate in the process. And then if subsequently a judicial body takes a decision that affects his position, he's ready to respect it. I think there have been decided cases all over the years, so many years, from Bilson, versus AG, Atrikata, among others, even now, Asifwa, that when people are performing their constitutional mandate, unless the Supreme Court, they should be allowed. Otherwise, in some cases, the Supreme Court said there's going to be a meltdown. Because if the judicial bodies are going to explain, the EC is supposed to explain why they are doing, then nothing's going to happen in this country. So then what it means is that for us as a country, we should allow the system to work and reduce the human intervention. And I like the fact that the CJ himself said that he's going to allow AI. So for instance, we should have a system that is put in place, like the computerized placement system. So
to do the empaneling?
Yes. If you file your case in court, it's a commercial matter. It involves liquidation or insolvency. It goes to a judge who is in the commercial court with experience in insolvency. Same thing, if you file a case in court, it relates to land. It goes to the land court and it's given to a judge who is experienced in stool matters. Or land has got to do with the stool. It goes there. So it's a system that even when you file, you know the judge that it may end up with. It is not the Chief Justice determining that. So if that computerized system is improved or we install it, and then we have AI performing that, then the risk of us worrying about the fact that the Chief Justice himself is going to empanel the judges on a case that he has interest in, that risk is taken out, because then it's a third party or the registrar's department through the AI system that's empaneling judges. And then we have that independence restored. Because I think lastly, what I would like to say is, when the parliamentary proceedings was going on, before it started, the speaker said something, that there was a conclave. And at the conclave, they had made certain determination. And I think that was a decent way of going about it, that he met the leadership of both sides, and they had agreed on something. And the whole debate followed that process. We should have more of such conclave, because some of the spectacle we've seen in Parliament is not very helpful. And so institutions like the Vatican, if they go through the conclave process, there are some people who are nominated that may be adverse findings against them. But to date, we don't know. And so that conclave process helped protect the integrity of and the impartiality of not only Parliament, but even our judicial system. Because some of the things we say about our justices of the Supreme Court, we shouldn't be saying them out there, because it affects and impugns on the integrity of our apex courts. And I think that's something that we should...
That's fine. Thank you so much.
Just adding on the back of that, it also encourages trust.
Trust in the whole process. Because of time, and we have two members on the Finance Committee here who are prepared to do justice to the 2026 budget. So we have to zoom straight into the budget conversation. But I would say a big thank you to lawyer Victoria Bright, who would be leaving us. She is an international corporate lawyer and entrepreneur. After this short break, we'll be joined by Dr. Priscilla. I'll do that, don't worry. We'll be joined by Dr. Priscilla Chumesi Balfour, an economist and senior lecturer, Department of Economics, University of Ghana. We'll be back, and then she will join, and the budget conversation will continue. Stay with us.
Honorable members, the motion has accordingly been adopted.
Welcome back. This is Newsfile, live on the Joy News channel on Multi TV and live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra and Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi. On social media, YouTube and Facebook, we are streaming this show live. My name is Osei Bonsu. In studio, we have Dr. Priscilla Chumesi Balfour joining us. She is an economist and senior lecturer, Department of Economics, University of Ghana, Legon. So she'll be joining our three gentlemen in studio. Yao Apia Late is still here with us, Honorable Isaac Adongo, and Dr. Mahama Tia Abdul Kabiru, both members of Parliament and all 7 on the Finance Committee in Parliament. So the rest of the time will be for the 2026 budget, as presented by the Minister in charge of Finance on behalf of His Excellency, the President. Before we zoom into the real details, Yao would help us through a brief presentation that captures all the critical parts of this budget. And Deloitte has put together this presentation. So Yao, over to you. Let's do it.
My opportunity.
Your 1 minute.
Of refusing me my 1 minute. What's the issue?
It's a problem. Okay, you let me do you the
answer. No, I just want to put on record that Tokono, so far in our discussion, we've not been told of any law she has breached. In the case of the EC, it was clear violation of procurement law, which can even send you to prison. Again, it's not for anyone to determine how the minority will conduct its business.
Okay.
And for anyone to suggest that it was disservice to our constituent, which also do not also reflect on what our constituents think. And to even suggest that the minority are not Ghanaians, and that to say that it's only the minority is to belittle the people we represent. We represent millions of Ghanaians on this matter. Lastly, I don't know whether it is probably also Vicky, the only woman who is also supporting this injustice against another woman. Otherwise, I will not understand why, if she has special issues with the Tokono, it could be special issue, but to suggest that it is a minority issue with the Tokono and it's not the country issue is to belittle the point. It's not ECOWAS determining. She's a lawyer and we are all lawyers.
You are reopening this conversation.
It's not ECOWAS determining.
You are reopening this conversation.
ECOWAS is a court.
You are not being fair. Let's move on.
There's a charter. There's a charter that guides Ghana's participation in this international.
That lady who spoke is not here. She's not here to defend herself.
To that extent,
that's fine.
That court is part of the laws of the country once we've ratified the ECOWAS charter. So it is not somewhere sitting there we're creating the perception that it is
ECOWAS determining for us. That's fine. That's fine. Thank you. I think you.
The lady is not here. It's not fair.
That's what there is.
This is emotional blackmail to say that she's a lady against another lady. That's emotional blackmail.
It's not emotional blackmail to say a minority.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine. I think we've all had our say. Thank you.
It's a blackmail.
Do you think
please take it away and do this?
There is a minority that is against it.
Honorable members of Parliament.
Everybody knows that.
Thank you.
The minority. Why are you suggesting that?
Yes.
Who spoke? Sophia Akufu is minority.
Who is? Oh, Masa.
Sophia Akufu is a minority.
Thank you. So we go through the slides.
Sure.
I think this is a summary of economic data. So in the last 2 years, and then first quarter, as well as, let's say, the third quarter of the year, and then the target for 2026. So overall GDP, in 2024, we ended with a GDP of 5.7%. We projected that this year, we're going to achieve a GDP of 4%. At a half year, our GDP growth was 6.3%, which is impressive, and over and above our target for the year of 4%. We are targeting a GDP growth of 4.8%. The good thing is our non-oil GDP has shown an impressive growth, and I think over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been decline in production in our Jubilee field because of certain factors, and as a result of that, our non-oil GDP has showed impressive growth. I think it's good for us as a country because we don't want to overly rely on our oil resources. We have to diversify into other areas. So non-oil GDP in the first quarter of the year is about 7.8% compared to a target in 2026 of 4.9%. That's impressive. And then on budget deficits, as a country, we've passed the Fiscal Responsibility Act.
Sure.
Which mandates that our budget deficit is less than 5%. During the COVID period, we suspended it. But I think in the last 2 or 3 years, we've operated below the 5%, which is still in line with the IMF program and some of the conditionalities there. So that's a good one. And inflation in 2025, we project inflation to end at about 12.9%, thereabout. But we've achieved a single-digit inflation. So as of September, it was 9.4%. In October, it's 8%. And next year, we are projecting at about 8% plus or minus 2%, which is good. I think if you look at the contribution of the various sectors to the economy, sector, services sector, and industry. So in the last 10 years or so, agriculture, which used to be the mainstay of our economy, has displaced and now taken over by the service sector. That has its own pluses and minuses. In the service sector front, you need certain or minimum skill to operate in the sector. So for you to act or operate as a lawyer, etc., you need certain qualifications. Yeah. But in the agri sector, you need little or no qualification to operate in. So I think government should have policies supporting the agri and industry sector, because that's where you employ a lot of people who have little or no education. Mm-hmm. Same as the middle, the missing middle, which is industry. The agri sector supports the industry sector. So if you have policies supporting the agri sector and the industry sector, we grow the economy without overly relying on the service sector. I think in the last 9 months, to say, we've had return to single-digit inflation, which is a very good development. Debt GDP ratio has reduced to now 45%. Disinflation, CD appreciating by about 35%. We have formalization of the gold sector, now gold board, and then increased non-oil sector GDP or dominance, as we said. And we have some positive rating by our credit rating agency and IMF program as well. So let's look at the trend. I think there's this discussion about government sitting on spending and not spending much, and also on the revenue side. So if you look at the revenue front, we missed our targets for the first 9 months by about 1.5%. Just about 1 so we just grew by about 1.5. Okay. So that's an impressive development. I think we missed it in areas of domestic revenue, tax revenue, and areas that we did so well was non-tax revenue. So I think that we should not overly concentrate on taxation. We should also look at other sources of revenue to support our economy. Same on the expenditure front. So we underspent by about 6.7%, which is good. And that supports the fact that government is now scrutinizing expenditure. And the areas that you overspent was compensation. Mm-hmm. There were some labor union activities. So obviously in the health and education sector, we saw some overspend. That was underspend in interest payment, grants, and also capital expenditure. That's a very good development. But I think let's look at the trend. On the revenue side, we have 83% of our revenue sources from, so we have about 83% of our revenue sources from taxation. If you look at it, you say it's an economy that's overtaxed. We should have it balanced. I mean, I was showing this chart to someone from Nigeria. He says, look, tax is just about less than 50%. So they have revenue from other sources. But for us, about 83% on taxation. So I think it's something that we should address. We should diversify our revenue source and look at other areas. On the expenditure,
even that we are told for tax to GDP, we have the lowest.
And that's where the problem is. So we have instances where we are not taxing enough. Yes, if you look at the revenue sources, it's significantly dependent on tax. So it means that whilst we are looking at other sources of revenue, we should also broaden the tax base and also diversify our revenue sources. On the expenditure front, you see that there's significant allocation to compensation. That obviously is driven by other factors such as what we are hearing, that nurses, guys in the labor front, also in the education sector are going on strike and governments are ceding to their request. But I think what is instructive is first on the interest payment. Interest payment is just about 20%. It used to be as high as 30% before the debt restructuring program. Now interest payment is about 19%. And capital expenditure, which used to be between 11 to 13%, now capital expenditure is about 19%. So some of the very aggressive and ambitious programs that government intends to embark on are going to be supported or funded through the budget program. And I think that's good. If you are going to do this capital expenditure in areas that will support productivity or industry sector, the budget deficit over the years, like I showed before, so it was 7.9 in an election year, but then we're now below the 5% threshold. We should keep to this. We do not have to base it because we've left the IMF program or we've left the fund program. We should keep to the less than 5% budget deficit, because widening the budget deficit means that we have to end up borrowing, and that's a risk for us. And our debt to GDP, look at it, it went all the way to as high as 80%. Now, as we speak, it's about 45%. And under the fund program, the expectation is at 55%. So 45% is more than exceeding the expectation of the target. So that's good. And this is the trend. I think the key driver of this is consolidation of public finances through critical scrutiny of government expenditure. The second thing is reduce external borrowing. We were priced out of, or we could not access the capital market. And then appreciation of the local currency. I recall in 2022, in the year 2022, our debt increased cumulative by 93 billion on account of the depreciation of local currency alone. So in the same vein, our debt has reduced significantly by about 150 billion on account of appreciation of local currency. So that's a very good development. And I said before, S&P has now upgraded Ghana. So now we are no longer at the risk of default. Sure. We are now at rated better. And that signifies an investor confidence in the system. Now, the good thing is the sinking fund is operational. The sinking fund is a fund that you set to help you repay your debt. So you don't have a situation where you get to a point where you default and you're unable to service your debt. So I think that's something that we should commend government for. And then we should ensure that we are keeping to the sinking fund and make sure we are funding that account. Some ambitious programs, the big push.
So maybe you wrap up on this.
Yes, yes. So the big push, the Ministry of Roads, among others. And I think maybe I'll hit on the taxes.
Okay.
So now the COVID-19 levy has been removed. Sure. That's a very good development because it has a sunset clause. We should not be charging COVID-19 where we do not have COVID. Same thing with the decoupling of the tax, the VAT system, and the reduction of the VAT from 21.9% to now 20%. That's almost 2 percentage point reduction in VAT. It's still high because in sub-Saharan Africa, it's average around 15%. So about 20% is still high, 5 percentage points higher than what we see in other countries. So I think these are very good developments, and I think that governments riding on the back of some very good achievement in the first 9 months, we should build on that to improve productivity and then
in 2026.
Yes,
that's fine. Thank you so much. That's the work done by Deloitte for us captures, the details of the 2026 budget statement in clear terms, so you're able to make a decision for yourself. Before I bring in our 2 members on the Finance Committee, let me pick the thought of Dr. Pressler on what we all heard from the Finance Minister. Doc, what do you think? What are the big things you heard in this budget? And is this the budget we need to move to the next stage?
Right. Thank you very much, Philip. And good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners. I must say that it is not surprising what we heard in the budget. This is the last budget in the 3-year period of the IMF program. And so essentially the budget is very heavy on fiscal discipline for Ghana to maintain the path that we are on. We are excited about the stability we observe currently, and this stability is critical. And when you look at what is in the budget, you see that the government is riding on the stability to move on to other things, which is important because we say that there is the need for us to invest in the structural challenges we have, which consistently makes the growth of the economy not very employment generating, because unemployment is increasingly becoming a problem. And so it is not surprising that the budget lays a lot of emphasis on fiscal discipline. And for us as analysts, we are watching the space, particularly as the country exits the IMF program next year, mid-next year. Yes. Because we know that historically, when Ghana is under a fund program, we do well. We do well. We perform excellently. Because when you look at the statistics Yao shared, you see that everything is on track. GDP growth is on track. We have achieved a single-digit inflation, which was even towards the end of the year, is been achieved currently. And so going forward within the budget, what is interesting to me is the way the government is using the stability we have obtained to try to look to the future in terms of infrastructural projects, in terms of budgeting for employment, for example. For someone with labor background, I'm excited to see that increasingly we are focusing on jobs when we talk about budgets in this country, which is critical. And so I see that this budget is also quite sensitive to the needs of the Ghanaian people in terms of social protection. Sure. Investment in education and health. All these are on the back of the stability that we observe. And I must indicate that the stability we are presently enjoying is the fact that a number of sectors are doing well, particularly on the back of gold and cocoa, right? And these critical minerals, the pricing is determined externally. Sure. And it's also because of some of the turbulent situations we've seen on the global front. That is why gold has done significantly well in recent times. And so going forward, I think that the investments locally, opportunities for value addition, employment generation, so that we build resilience in the situation where gold underperforms, in the situation where cocoa underperforms, that should be the direction of
a fallback plan.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
And one other thing is the choice of the areas government wants to invest, to bring about the growth in employment figures we are seeing. Government chooses to invest in commercial agriculture, in this case, palm plantations, and the expectation is that many jobs will be created in there, and also investment in roads. Government speaks about the Accra to Kumasi Expressway, which is expected to create some 300,000 plus jobs. Do you think that is the way to go from what you're saying, Doc?
I think it is important, but when we talk about employment generation, we should also focus on the generation of sustainable and decent jobs. Okay. Because when you look at the 300,000 jobs in the construction that is proposed, you see that these are temporary jobs. Okay. And so essentially, but it is important. I think we need to start from somewhere. My only reservation is that a lot of these big projects are usually consistently promised in budgets, but they are not delivered. And so when you look at this, I'm looking at the funding sources, for example, the proposed funding sources for this. You see
that's for the road project?
Exactly.
Yeah, government says they budgeted 30 billion.
Exactly.
Ghana cedis for the big push.
For the big push, yes. Right. So the big push, I think that they are budgeting that from the ABFA, and there's also the proposal to use some of other mineral resources, proposal for private public partnerships. Yeah. And so when it comes to, for example, public-private partnerships, the private sector would want to ride on the confidence that we have, which is the stability. And that is why I insist that the stability we are observing, we need to guard it as much as possible. Because anything that derails, that means that all these plans will be thrown out of gear. And so essentially, if the private sector is going to partner with government, they need some level of certainty. Some level of protection, and also some level, projection of the revenues that will be out there. And so you look at the reintroduction of tolls. When the highways are done, we know that there will be some introduction of tolls. Would those be enough for private sector to be able to get their investments back in due time? These investments are very long-term investments, and that would require some level of continuity in our governance space. And so, for example, I think that as a country, we always insist on the need for us to think long-term, and that the periodic changes in government and shifts in policy stance do not really augur well for investment, particularly if government is going on the tangent of PPP, which is private sector participation. They need that assurance, and they need that level of continuity to be able to do that.
That's fine. Thank you so much, Dr. Priscilla Twumasi Balfour. Let me remind our listeners and our viewers that because of the critical nature of our budget conversation, the production team has approved the extension of time by some 30 minutes. So the show ends today at 12:30 p.m. and we are grateful to the production team for doing this for us. Honorable Adongo, I'll now come to you. The budget has been presented. You are the chairman of the Finance Committee. Now that there is budget committee, the budget will go to the budget committee first, right? Or it will come to your committee? Okay.
The budget committee would look at the appropriation in the end, and also consider other government obligations, which are the centralized expenditure handles that are under the Ministry of Finance that are spent for the benefit of the entire economy. So wage bill, interest payments, transfers to statutory funds, those are other government obligations, and they will be dealt with by the
budget committee. Okay.
But let me say that I'm also part of the budget committee.
Oh, you are? Wow. So which part of the budget will come to the Finance Committee?
So the Finance Committee would consider the Ministry of Finance as a macro-fiscal institution.
Okay.
It's a macro-fiscal institution because it handles the macro as well as also acting as though it is a sector ministry, which deals with the Ministry of Finance and its agencies. So those agencies will be brought to the Finance Committee. Most of the enabling legislation that would empower the minister to implement the budget, like the revenue bills and some of the instruments, would pass through the Finance Committee for us to get them approved, so the minister is empowered to implement them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. As a member of the majority, the party which has formed government, when you scan through social media, I mean, the general feedback you get from people who are apolitical is that this seems to be a good budget, how it was presented, the details of it and all of that. You should be excited as government, no?
Yes, but we know that it's a difficult task. We inherited a government where, we were constrained by many factors. First, we needed to work within the space of the IMF program, which had several benchmarks that had derailed, and we needed to bring it back on board. We had constrained because we had been blocked out of the international capital market. Even our own domestic lenders did not trust the government. So the domestic capital market was gone, and we were only restricted to the short end of the market, and we needed only to borrow on the short term. And if you're a finance person, you will know that that comes with a lot of risk. You have refinance risk, basically using short-term funding to fund long-term projects. Clearly, you have a misalignment when it comes to your obligations. So we needed to address all of that. But we also knew that most of the economic variables, I would call them, were misbehaving. They were misbehaving because they were responding to the misbehavior in the management of the economy. For instance, if you had an economy where about 80 billion Ghana cedis has been printed and pumped into the economy, okay, what do you think those monies will go? And especially when your capital market is gone. So there are no opportunities to invest those kind of monies. It will find its way into the forex market because people then go to buy the forex. That is a clear misconduct that is enforced by the management of the economy. And you needed to sanitize that and bring some behavior to bear on that. So what did we do? I watched a program when one of my colleagues was at pains to explain that we had sanitized or sterilized about 60 billion, and he didn't understand why. That is high-powered money. And high-powered money operates as though you have a rebel or mercenaries coming into your country and holding rifles. They will kill anybody at sight, right? So when you pump 80 billion into the economy that doesn't belong there, you need to find them and lock them up if you want to bring behavior to bear on your inflation, interest rate, and exchange rate. So the first thing we did was to make sure that all those mercenaries are back to border. Okay, so we sterilized close to 70 billion, and that is very expensive. So you now have at the Bank of Ghana close to 70 billion of high-powered money sitting there and isolated from the economy so that we can isolate the noise from the economy and see the economy for what it is. So the end result is that all those extra money that we're chasing forex are gone. So the forex now is responding to need, not just noise. Okay. Then you had a situation where, as a result of this, your inflation was around 26 or 23%. What that means is that to move to real interest rate territory, you needed a buffer around 23%. So 23% plus a buffer gives you a real interest rate. So you wouldn't be surprised that a government was borrowing at 32, 33%. Now you have isolated that. What you are seeing is that inflation is well behaved, and as a result of that, you can borrow at 11.4%. Okay, so that is what we did. Now, you would also realize that because of all these variables, we are seeing stability. But when you see stability, the next step is that your stability itself has an impact in your growth numbers, because you know that once inflation is decelerating, the advantage you get is that your deflator becomes smaller. And as a result, you begin to see growth. So the growth that we are seeing was largely about creating sanity within the space. Now, the second one is that we also realized that our fiscal environment was also misbehaving. So we needed to stop that. And the only way you could stop that is to pass reforms. So we came to Parliament and said, look, you cannot just be contracted anyhow. So before you can contract, we want to amend the PPA Act and say that you must come for commencement authorization. So nobody
from the finance ministry.
Yes, from the finance ministry. So we made the PPA the gatekeeper. If anybody comes here to say he wants to procure, ask them whether they have authorization and the government has agreed that it has money to spend.
Yeah.
Okay, so the gatekeeper now made sure that it was waiting for the Ministry of Finance. So the Ministry of Finance now had the responsibility to vet all those things before they were procured. So you see that commitment controls, began to work. And the advantage of that is that we're able to basically get a handle on the fiscal anchor, which is that we're able to pay all our expenses and leave something to pay down our debt service. So after paying for compensation, paying for statutory funds, and paying for capital expenditure, all generated domestically, you then have the equivalent of 1.5% of your GDP. And our GDP is in the region of close to 800 billion Ghana cedis.
Yes.
Calculate 1.5% of that, which is available for you to pay your debt service, pay for interest, and pay some of your amortization. So you begin to see that for the first time, our rate of debt accumulation moved into negative territory because we're not adding on to our debt. We're paying off the debt and leaving some to pay off the accumulated principal. So once we got a handle on all of that, now we move to 2026, where we now want to make use of what we have done. So if you look at the fiscal objectives for the 2026 budget, the first thing is that we'll continue to consolidate
the
stability. We don't want to lose focus on inflation, on interest rates, and all those variables. And we think that the fiscal anchor must be maintained. So that is the first step. The second step is that having done that, we must move into the phase of transformation and job creation. Because the stability was creating that growth, it was not job creating enough. So we now have to move into the next phase of transformation and job creation. How do you achieve that? We agree that over the years, we have not been able to renew our infrastructure. So the big push is part of the transformation to renew our infrastructure. And I heard you mention the Accra Expressway.
Yes.
For those of you who know Ghana very well, that is the gateway to what we call the Northern Ringway.
Sure.
Okay. So you go to Ashanti region through the expressway, you hit Techiman, you go through Wenchi, you end up at Sola, takes you to Wa, and then to Tumu, all the way back to Boga, and then you can go to Boku. From there, you use Pasenkwe, hit through Nalelu, and you are back to Walwale, and then you come back or alternatively, you use the other intermodal road, which takes you through Ho, okay, and takes you to
the Eastern Corridor.
Have, and at Have, you decide whether you want to go through Kwando or you want to come to Hohoi and go through Kwanta, go to Pasa, Otidemanko, and back to that, what do you call it? What is it? Former ministers.
Panda, oh no.
No, not Panda. Wait. That road takes you to.
Is it?
Bimbila. It takes you to Bimbila to Yendi, and you are back in Tamale, and you can decide to go this way and go through the Upper East and all those, or you go this way and go through Sola and all of that. So you can see a broad range of road infrastructure that will be renewed by the big push. And it is a calculated attempt to give Ghana a chance to reform our infrastructure. Now, for those of you who are in the West, you know that you can go through Central region, end up in Western region.
And then Western North.
Then you go through Asenkregwa, you go through Enchi, you enter Dwabuso, come through Sehiri also, and then use Bebieni and back to Kumasi. So we are reforming the entire road network. It's a deliberate policy. And that is something that if we achieve, we would be able to leave to the people of Ghana a renewed infrastructure that will underpin the transformation of our country. And I had my colleagues.
But the question is about how are we funding?
I will do that. You see, I had my colleagues hold a press conference, and my good friend and brother, Mohammed Amin, was at pains to say that we budgeted for 13.7 billion and we committed 63 billion. Clear lack of understanding of project management. If you want to put $10 billion on the ground in 4 years, what you do is that the first year, you do a lot of preparatory work. You are now going to identify all these roads I've mentioned. You are going to do inventory of all those roads. How many bridges you need to have, where do you need to excavate, and where do you need to backfill. You do all of that, put together a design. And after the design, you have to now put together a bill of quantities and start contracting. So you want to be ready when you enter 2026, that you have a pool of projects that are already contracted and can start. You don't do that in 2026. You do that in 2025. And put and contract 63 billion, that even if you do 50% of that on the ground in 1 year, that gives you the 30 billion you are supposed to spend in that year. Okay? What they are saying is that contract for 13 billion, and then the next year, come and now start the process to contract. By the time you contract, you are in the 6th month of the year. Clearly, you can't spend 30.
So essentially, you're saying the 13.8 billion budgeted for Big Push this year was used to do
part of it has been done, and part of it is there. The money is referenced. Don't forget, it is coming out of ABFA and other resources. So it's already there. But what I'm saying is that because of that, when we came to Parliament last year or this year, we didn't only mention Big Push for that year, but we spelled out and gave clarity to the medium-term outlook, what we call the multi-year expenditure framework.
Sure.
We brought that. And if you put the expenditure framework over 4 years together, that is why we are contracted. So there is a parliamentary approval to commit the state to the 63 billion, so that you can now be implementing, and as you implement, you develop new ones, so that in the end you can do the 10 billion, which is the equivalent of 100 billion Ghana cedis. So what we are seeing is clear project management thinking that says, let's do most of our preparatory work this year. Let's get a number of projects on our books that when we start implementation proper, by the close of the year, we will have done the equivalent of 30 billion of projects on the ground that our budget can accommodate. Then the following year, if we do another 50%, we have another 30 billion. By which time, we will have developed new projects and continue the journey. So for those who don't understand project management and are thinking that we have committed 63, and because of that they are worried, they should go and read their books about project management. If you don't do that, what it means is that to be able to spend 30 billion, you have to crash the project. And when you crash a project, you put more resources, and that becomes very expensive. We want to deliver Big Push in the most efficient and effective manner to the people of Ghana. And that is why we are forward-looking in developing and making sure that the preparatory works are completely done. So that is the first one. The second transformation, we realize that one of the major bottlenecks to our country is our energy future. So we are aware that we have serious legacy problems in the energy sector. We spent the first year stabilizing energy and making sure that we deal with the issue of the energy sector debt. And that is why you will find that we have renegotiated most of the IPPs. Okay? But in doing that, we also know that there are some IPPs that are not likely to be interested in the model that we are operating. And for those that don't want to commit long term, we must prepare for them. In the event that they exist, how do we fill the gap of the energy loss? And it is the reason His Excellency says he will construct a government-sponsored thermal plant of 1,200 megawatts, so that for those who want to exit, we'll have ready-made power to fill in. But to do that, we are doing the entire value chain. So you will see we are spending a lot of money to build a second gas plant at Atuabo. Okay? And that will produce over 150 million standard cubic feet of gas to power our energy sector. We are retooling most of our energy, we are repurposing most of them to make sure that they are more efficient. But also we are also improving the mix of power. So we are negotiating down most of the rates that were negotiated for our solar power to bring it down to reasonable levels. We're doing 12 cedis per megawatt hour. We have negotiated down to something around 6. We know that if we begin to add more, and it's government sponsored, we'll be able to bring it down. Let me tell you, most of the IPPs have a financing cost of 12% on a dollar bill. That is very expensive. And I heard you mention the fact that the rating agencies, Moody, Fitch, Standard & Poor's, have all upgraded Ghana away from a junk status to investment grade status. What that means is that the advantage of that should count for something in terms of our costs. Why should we still be paying 12% to borrow when the yields on our bonds today is in the region of about 7%, 6%? So we are trying to assist those agencies to replace those expensive financing arrangements so that tariffs will come down. So the most important thing is that we want to make sure that we build for our energy future. Then we can properly address the problem of transformation. For those who are shouting everywhere that we can't put the lights on and we can't do 24-hour economy, they should tell me the last time the lights were switched off. But beyond the lights not being switched off is that we are investing more into the future. And the work that young man, John Jenapo, has done is amazing. For those of you who are not close to him, go and learn the lessons. And we will fix that problem and make sure that even the leakages within the energy sector will address that. And we have a clear program to make sure that those financing are done from within Ghana. And the resources are there, the policies are there, and he will be assisting me to approve some of them in the next few days. So we are very clear. We are very clear what the strategy is. We are very clear that the resources are here, and we will find the dollar money within here and spend the money.
The overarching question, Honorable, is that, and I think Doc mentioned that any time the IMF is in town, the records show that we do well.
That is why we are not discussing a successor program. You see?
No, I'm coming.
I can understand what you're saying.
So this year, we are still under an IMF program. So I've heard people saying, hasten slowly. That we should reduce the praises of government. The real test will be when IMF leaves from the middle of next year, if we can maintain the discipline and still hold the system.
So let me tell you something. Yesterday, my brother said that given the amount of intervention in the market, you would have expected that the cedi will be trading around 8 cedis. And I said, what? We pumped 60 billion of borrowed money, and the cedi went to 17 cedis. Or you don't remember? We're doing 3 billion every year.
Yes, from the capital market.
And it didn't stop the cedi from sliding.
No.
And now, let me make my point. I'm explaining something. So let me tell you.
Were they specifically for?
If 3 billion couldn't solve it, they are talking about 1.4. You see, there's a clear forex framework that is operated in this country. The forex that are generated by the economy. Ordinarily, those money should be going to the commercial banks to intermediate. Okay? So, if you understand the framework, what they call intervention are clearly financial intermediation. Gold board buys gold from ordinary Ghanaians who go to mine. Shouldn't that money be going into the banks? We export cocoa produced by ordinary cocoa farmers. Shouldn't those monies be going to the banks to facilitate import of goods and services? We call that intermediation. But the framework says that, look, take all your flows, set aside government requirements, government forest requirements, including the energy sector bills. What you have now left, make sure that you take care of the accumulation of your reserves. And by the way, Ghana has exceeded its accumulation requirement under the IMF program. This year, we're supposed to accumulate an additional of about $840 million. As of last month, we're doing 1.2 billion, far ahead of the target. Okay? So the difference that is, what do you do with it? You send it back where it belongs. And the IMF understand that that is not intervention, that is financial intermediation. So people ignorantly who don't understand the framework that is being used, even IMF initially thought that it was intervention until we explained to them that those monies that come in belong to where we have sent them back. And
so that is intermediation, it's intermediation and not intervention.
Yes, there is an element of intervention when the market is imperfect.
Yes.
And there are constraints within the market. Then you can intervene. But I'm saying that a lot of those monies that they are calling intervention is financial intermediation. Forex intermediation.
Then, I think you've spoken.
So part of the transformation.
Wrap up for me.
Part of the transformation is to create the goalposts that you have spoken about some of them. One, we want to make sure that when gold is in trouble, what happens? So we are trying to find the next cocoa.
Which is palm.
Which is palm, cashew, all those agribusiness, and the Ministry of Trade and Industry, which is now adding agribusiness, is being empowered to make sure that we produce those things, to create employment, but also to create additional forex revenue. Now, apart from that, you need to understand that part of the architecture of the next 2026 is to scale up social spending. So, Get Fund. Get Fund allocation was about 3.6 billion. And out of the 3.6 billion, there's something they call Dachi. They went to borrow. Okay? They went to collateralize future monies that they hadn't seen and took billions of dollars. And the Get Fund was servicing at 1.2 billion a year. Take that out of 3.4. You don't have anything. You get about 2.5. And now we are giving Get Fund 9.9 billion in 1 year. It has never happened. And we are saying we want to go and...
Give me a minute.
Well, it's unfortunate we don't have
No, I'm coming. Just give me a minute. This is Newsfile. We have to break briefly here. I hear there is a challenge with your microphone, so we'll fix that and then we come back. And Honorable Kabir would also have his say. So a short break and then we'll be back to continue with this. Welcome back. This is Newsfile live on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. I'm Philip Osei Bonsu. We are discussing the 2026 economic policy and budget statement from the president, which was read on behalf of him by the finance minister, Dr. KCL Ato Forson. So far, we've heard from Yawapia Lati presenting Deloitte and Touche analysis of the budget. And then Dr. Priscilla Chumesi Bafo gave us her initial, view on the entire 2026 budget. I'll get back to her for another round. But we heard from Honorable Isaac Adongo, Chair of the Finance Committee in Ghana's Parliament, with quite an elaborate, exposition on the budget. Let me get to pick the initial comment of Dr. Mahamatia Abdul Kabiru, also who serves again on the Finance Committee. Doc, your views on the 2026 budget. I mean, as I said earlier, generally you find a lot of commendation on social media, at least for the job the Finance Minister did. What do you think?
Yeah, let me start with the good work job done. Mm-hmm. And probably it's quite not often that when we speak, people think that it's all about politics. It's good well done because the Finance Minister has removed the COVID-19 levy in consonance with the provisions of the bill that put in that particular law, and also in consonance with their own campaign promise. It's a campaign promise delivered, even though we had issues with the timing, but they explained why they could not remove it in the first year, and they are removing it in the year for 2026. So understood, that's something good. It is also good that we have some stability, and that stability is at a particular cost, which most of us have not talked about. Even on this particular table, we've not even discussed the cost of that stability. Okay, but in the meantime, let's give them the benefit of that stability, that we have some stability and that people are happy. At least the Ghanaian cedi is first stable. But there are certain comments we will need to correct here. Reserves exceeded the IMF target even before the MPP left office. Close to 4 months of import capacity.
I'm sorry, you are misunderstanding. I'm saying that this year... No. There is always an annual target.
Okay, and I'm saying that you're talking
year, I'm not denying. I'm saying that you are saying this year. I'm saying that even last year, 2024, the reserves exceeded the IMF target. Okay. But the government could only intervene to the tune of 80 million in the market. What is the difference between immediation and what do you call it, intervention?
They are completely different.
The difference is that, one, you are relying on available money in the system, directing it, i.e., if World Bank gives them money, if cocoa is syndicated, all those money goes to the people, demand for dollar will normalize, and there's not going to be pressure. That is mediation. Intervention is when you directly auction amount to demand those people who are demanding the dollar. That's different. And the Bank of Ghana has stated clearly, with clear terms, that even the last month they intervened over 1 billion in the market directly. It's not any mediation of money. It's people going to them and they are auctioning the dollar to them. So we should not use flowery language. We should not use flowery language to deceive Ghanaians. That is intervention. Again, 8 billion is what they have auctioned. It's what they have auctioned to the people, to Ghanaians who demand this forex in the last 9 months, 10 months, which translates to about 1 billion every month. Compare that to 80 million every month that the previous government was expected to do. Definitely, you can't expect the same movement of the cedi of the cedi dollar in terms of the depreciation of one against. Again, the finance minister stated on paragraph 1183 of his presentation, and I quote, "The 63 billion road contract awarded so far under the big push will generate an estimated 490,000 jobs." Unquote. What is the confusion about this statement? 63 billion roads contract awarded so far.
That's commitment.
Awarded so far. It's not saying that I am committing in 2026. It's not saying that I'm committing into the future. In that case, government we approve for the minister 13 billion appropriation.
Yes.
You cannot commit above appropriation. You cannot commit above, and you are talking of financial discipline. What's the discipline?
Okay, so your issue with the 63 billion is that You approved 13.8 billion for big
billion for them. Multi-year commitment were done, and that did not even include 63.
How
it
much
was not that, even if you added the 43,
if
added the 43 to this, it is still 48 billion, around 48 billion. So the minister has no right to commit above appropriation, and we are saying that what you are appropriating is not discipline. You are even talking of discipline. Again, they talk about the growth, and that the growth is my brother actually talked impressive half year. What was half year growth in the 2024? 7% to GDP. Even the economy that said it was junk managed. It was 7%. Here now we are doing what? 6.3. And an economy that was badly managed or junk, half year was 7%. This year it is 6.3. Let's not go. But me, I'll analyze the budget in two folds. First, what did they promise us in 2025? What was delivered in 2025? What are their promises? And I'll match what they are promising us now against what they delivered to see whether or not they are able to deliver that. That is the only rational analysis of the budget. In 2024, for the 2025 budget, they said that they were going to deliver Women Development Bank with an initial commitment of 90 million.
No, at the time it was 51 million.
51 million.
Yes.
Nothing has been said of it. Nothing was done. That was a promise in the budget. And it created a lot of excitement among Ghanaians. Nothing was delivered on it. They said 24-hour economy. They mentioned it in that particular budget and gave a formula 1-3-3. 1 job, 3 sheep, 3 people. Nothing has been done.
They launched the policy document.
Nothing has been done. Ghanaians were not looking for policy in 2025. They wanted to see 24-hour economy translating into their lifestyle. Again, they mentioned about 1 million coders program. Have you seen them talk about it?
Yeah, it was launched.
What has become of it?
Okay.
What has been said on it? I'm not talking about the numbers. I'm talking about the issues that affect the real Ghanaians. Again, they mentioned about their so-called, he failed to talk about the revenue failure. I will reserve that for another platform because revenue is a different matter. And I want to tie it to the 2026 budget. The big push. That year, 2025, they committed 13 billion. And how much did they spend? 7 billion. Almost 54% or less than 50%, less than half percent of that amount. Now, so this should tell you something. That it is not okay for government to come and promise and say that I'm going to do this and allocate figures and people are doing on the floor of parliament and people are happy. When you come to the implementation, what has been the history? Even your own 13 billion for your so-called big push in 2025, which was actually directed to Rose Elwe, you've not even been able to do that. And you call that fiscal discipline. That's what we call fiscal deception. Because fiscal discipline is when you are cutting expenditure in non-high value ends. But why do you cut expenditure in capital investment and it's called a fiscal discipline? And you are increasing expenditure in compensation. Basically, that's what the government has done. Even in the presentation by Lati, compensation expenditure exceeded target. But capital investment, which is supposed to support economic growth, reduced. And you call that fiscal discipline, that roads are not necessary to be constructed, or you didn't get money to do the roads. Now, let's continue. Gold board. In the budget, we approved $279 million.
Ghana cedis.
It was in dollars.
It was dollars? Okay.
It was in dollars. Not a penny has been released to gold board from the government. Not even 1 cedi. Now, it is the central bank that is financing gold board. Sure. And central bank is directly pumping Ghanaian cedi. They are saying they are mopping, printing dollar, giving to the gold board.
Put him to strict.
You made a lot of basic. Can you allow me?
Not funding gold.
We have gone for right information.
And where is it?
Wait. In the fullness of time. In the fullness of time. Our colleague addressed Parliament. Our colleague
platform.
Central Bank.
Can you be patient?
Hold on.
I told you that we are coming to the same budget.
So bring it.
Kabiru, hold on.
Bring your evidence. You can't just spew
out. So he speaks about evidence.
I am saying that.
Is it the case? Is it the case that when the NDC took over with the gold purchase program that used to exist under you, it was the central bank funding PMMC then to buy gold?
Exactly so.
It's the same policy continuing.
No, but it's not what they said in the budget.
It's not even.
So I am telling you their budget commitment vis-a-vis the execution of that budget and the realistic nature of the promises they are going to give us going into 2026. If you have not delivered on all your own, this, you see, the euphoria around the first budget is even more than any euphoria we are getting in this particular budget. Yet they did less than 50% of that. Imagine this budget. Imagine this budget they are reading. Let's continue. Gold Board, you promised $279 million. Not one penny has been released to them. Central Bank, give them CD, they buy.
Where were you when they gave them CD? Bring your right to information request.
But Honorable Adongo, are you also saying the central bank is not advancing money to gold or to buy gold?
No.
So where is Gold Board getting their money from?
Look,
no, hold on.
This is a question to ask, but not to say that.
Okay, where are they getting their money from?
No, is that a conversation?
That's the question.
Let me challenge it. Okay, so let me explain to you.
Yes.
You see the auction he's talking about.
Sure.
It's not auction. I'm not talking about auction.
Let me come.
Well, if you are going to talk about auction, you have to go talk about auction. Let me finish my point. If you want to talk about auction, let me finish my point.
Okay,
we're not talking about auction.
Where is Gold Board getting their money from?
Simple question.
So I'm explaining to you.
Yes.
The auction is a 4SA.
It's not.
I'm coming. Why?
Let's talk about auction.
No, I cannot answer the question the way you want it.
No, then let me continue.
So let me answer it the way I want it. Why do you want me to answer the way you want it?
Yes.
The auction is a 4SA. Okay? So the banks come and say that this is what we want. Okay?
Yes.
They make the money available to buy gold and deliver forex. In a week's time, the forex is settled. It's a simple arrangement that ignorance is
not auction.
Okay,
it's not auction. You are not buying. No, they are not. I'm making auction. So you see, you are misleading.
He brought auction.
No, you are misleading. You are misleading. I'm saying auction in the context of forex demand. You don't demand forex to buy gold. You buy gold in Ghana city.
Okay, that's
you buy gold in Ghana city. So don't mislead Ghanaians.
But you
buy gold in Ghana city.
You see,
no. You are.
Okay, so
you are misleading.
Kabiru, yes,
you don't buy gold in dollars. So don't talk about forex auction.
I'm
talking about forex auction in the interest of
the right
demand dollar to import fuel. Who demands
when it comes
honorable. When you were saying all the things I disagree, which I disagree.
That's fine.
Which I disagree. They told you where they get the money.
So why is it?
Kabiru, just ask you simple. You've not. Honorable. It's not the auction.
Please allow him to proceed.
Let me
remind us. I cannot just answer the way you
want. It's not the simple question.
It's fine.
Okay, so give me that.
No, this is not the House of Parliament. Please.
Answer for me.
We are not on the floor of Parliament.
Yeah, but
let him.
But be factual. Put people to strict.
Yeah, but that's what we've done. And we've also asked you similar questions. So let's
allow. You had uninterrupted 23 minutes.
Yes. I wasn't lying.
You had look. I had issues. I was noting them down, which I'm countering.
Kabiru, proceed.
Forget it.
Proceed.
You had spewed a lot of lies, which I had noted.
Kabiru, at least okay. Let us put down the line.
So you should at least also give me that particular decency and respect.
I have not approved any money to be given to Gold Board.
That's fine.
So, and I sit on the board. And you sit here and say that I have approved money to be given to Gold Board.
Adongo,
it's a lie.
You've answered. Let him proceed.
At the board, they are not consulting.
Okay, so
I'm telling you on authority that a right to information request.
Kabiru and Adongo, please, let's respect our viewers. Let's respect our viewers. Kabiru, proceed to the other point you have. Proceed to the other point.
But don't lie. I will let you talk. But if you lie, I will put you.
You see, Honorable Adongo told a lot of lies on this.
Me.
I noted them down to counter.
Yes, Adongo
so similar. You will have time.
Adongo, please not all your points. You would have another time. Fortunately, we've been given some additional
30 minutes
to end at 1 p.m. So yes, Kabiru, please.
So please.
Please make your point quickly, and then the other speakers.
Now there are discussions about inflation, and I say that look, inflation being at 8% on the books is good. On the external investor view about the economy is good, but at what cost? They talk about the fact that they have admitted that some 60 billion were taken out of the Ghanaian economy, and they say, oh, it's high-powered money. There are missionaries carrying guns, and that before you can get the economy not to misbehave, you have to kill the missionary. and the missionaries were
mercenaries.
You have to tame them.
You have to tame the missionaries.
The missionaries
were those. Speaking about me. The missionaries were those people who were holding guns, and they have to bring them in check. Nice analogy. But have you wondered why there's a food glut? Have you wondered why? Have you wondered why now people don't have money to even go on with the transaction? Have you wondered why economic growth has contracted? The rate of growth has contracted. Have you wondered? Because demand, we all know, basic economics will tell you that once aggregate demand is reducing, productivity is going to reduce. Try learning in economics. So you are not working on the inflation from the supply side, you are working from the demand side. And that is the cause. That's what I'm saying, that we will admit that the numbers look good. And that for investors, it is probably going to send a good signal. But it is at a cost that I would have expected that the rate, the IMF had a target. IMF has something in mind, and they set the target. They knew that if you want to squeeze the good people of Ghana and get the rate that you are supposed to achieve in 2026, you are going to put pressure on them. And that is essentially the reason why you give yourself some time within which you achieve what? Some targets. But the government says, okay, we want to be commended, so let's do what we're supposed to do in 2026, in 2025, at a cost to the good people of Ghana. Now, there's talk about, I'll get back to that particular point, exchange rate. Stability, well and good. The government has done well. CD is now trading for about 11 Ghana CD, when it was around, what do you call it, 14 Ghana CD. When,
at the time they took over.
Where was he buying that CD?
Where
was he buying it?
That...
No, I want to know where you were buying it. The 40 cities, where were you buying it?
Your Bank of Ghana, which you bought.
Official interbank rate as of January 7th.
Go to the Abuchi.
So, but if he's using
even the 11, I'm using the BOG rate. I'm saying that about 11, and I say about 12. I didn't say it's 10.94 as of Friday.
You know that, and you went to mention.
I'm saying that when you are saying about,
conveniently mention 11.
But
so you know it's 10.4.
But when something was 13.9 something, I say 14. What is wrong with that?
It cannot be.
Don't be appropriated. But when it favors you, you shouldn't be okay because it favors you.
I didn't know you know that figure.
So you acknowledge that there is some good news on the currency front.
I'm saying that was the rate as at yesterday.
Okay.
Do we know the rate today? So when I'm using approximation, he of all people,
that's fine. That's fine. Yes.
Why people should use it as well, because as at the time you are speaking, you don't have the figure.
That's fine.
And the BOG does not issue interbank rates on weekends. So that is the point. Now, you would do that because every month, you pump some $1 billion to support the demand for the currency. And you want to compare your results to someone who was restricted. Remind you, it was a condition that we needed to fulfill. Okay. That condition was removed at the end of 2025. Following the accumulation of the reserves and seeing that, okay, your reserves are now on a particular level threshold that we demand, and you can decide to do whatever you want to do with the difference. That's what he's saying. But remember, this week, or last week, the BOE has itself come out to admit that, one, we were intervening. 2, our intervention brought stability. 3, we are now going to regulate the intervention by making sure that we do what we call strategic intervention to remove what they call market distortion. This is a clear admission by the central bank itself, saying that the stability we are getting is not born out of economic activities. It's not by the fact that we are now exporting more than we import. Okay. But it's because
just mention each of them and tell me where it has fallen.
It's because we are.
You see? So mention cocoa.
Let him finish. I don't have a left-off.
Okay, on the 2026 I'll conclude on the 2026 budget. Mention the 2026 budget.
Concluding.
They are telling us that capital investment in the 2026 budget is going to be around 3.6% of GDP. That's what they are proposing.
Okay.
That what?
And they are saying that they are now moving from stabilization to jobs.
Transformation and jobs.
Investment that will drive jobs. Private sector, private sector participation. That's what they stated in their budget. Now, their investment in infrastructure, with their so-called lofty Eastern corridor and the roads all Adongo mentioned from Hohoi to Kweve to Pandai, and from all of them.
It's a 4-year program.
You don't even have 4 years. So
it's a 4-year program.
So even all that, if you quantify,
beyond the 4 years ought to be put in 2026.
If you
quantify that
for 4 years,
yes,
if
you quantify that, just do your what they call 3% of GDP. Just even 5. Just even do for 5 years. You cannot achieve that.
Oh,
just even do 5% of your
wishful
GDP.
thinking.
You get just even do 5% of your GDP on infrastructure investment or capital investment. You cannot achieve that. So that's what I'm saying. That when you throw out and you put artificial intelligence features out there for people, they will enjoy it. Basically, that's what they are doing. 2, wages.
Yeah, you wages on wages for me.
That is only a component of it.
Yeah, please, you do that for me. It's
wages will take 5.7% of GDP. Interest payment, what they are going to use to pay interest, is equivalent to what they want to invest in infrastructure development. 3.6% of GDP.
How much was it?
Okay, statutory payment, 4% of GDP. I'll have to give you the actual figures.
2024, how much was it?
2024, I don't have the 2024 figures right away.
You won't have.
But the reason 2024 was even there was a moratorium. You don't even get 2024. There was a moratorium on the service of interest because we're going through the debt exchange program. All right. So there was even a lot of space for us in 2024 because of the debt standstill. So we know this. You don't need to ask me for the figures, or you also know this. Okay.
I know what.
And I'm saying that he's talking of debt to GDP. What has the government done?
Now 45%.
Yes. What has the government done to bring it down? Nothing, except one, the stability we are having in the exchange rate. That's the only thing. But all the reduction we are seeing is as a result of the debt exchange program that they know nothing about. I'll conclude on this. He mentioned about fiscal reforms. Which of those initiatives that they have so-called introduced were not presented in the last budget or in the last government? The Debt Fiscal Responsibility Act. Which government? Again, what they call fiscal deficit not going beyond 45%.
Yeah.
It was part of the reform that was presented before that. Unfortunately, I must admit, it wasn't part before the last parliament elapsed. They reintroduced that by way of amendment to the Public Financial Management Act. So basically, it's a template they are following. And Providence, and as the goals will be good to them and kind to them, I know this is an IMF-supported program. We are in an IMF economy. All the achievement, I'm happy that you drew his attention, and then Doctor also mentioned it, that all the successes we are chalking would only stand the test after we've gone out of the IMF program. 2025, 2027 is a real test of this government, whether or not it can actually keep its fidelity to the macroeconomic indicators, or they will drill from the program.
Kabiru, let me thank you. Doc, you've listened to the two sides. You've heard from the majority, you've heard from the minority on the budget. What would you say finally, going forward, what government should do, what the people should expect in 2026?
Thank you, Philip. I believe that the budget is basically government intention in terms of expenditure and revenue. And so the plans are bold. We are excited about the fact that we are investing in infrastructure to build on the productive base of the economy. And so, yes, but the reality of it is in the implementation. And so, like I said, a lot of the projects and programs that we see, some of them have cyclically been observed in budgets. This is not the first time we are seeing the Kumasi-Accra Road in the budget, for example. And so the implementation is critical. The efficiency in the usage of public funds. And in that regard, I know that the minister also mentioned on the value for money. Yeah, value for money. Unit to be created at the finance ministry. Exactly. We know that procurement is a big problem in this country. It's a conduit for corruption. Government expenditure is always overbloated. And so in that regard, we hope that that office would work efficiently and not another conduit to delay and extort funds from contractors and all. But overall, my expectation is that if the funding is available, and I must indicate that a lot of the big push infrastructure funding is based on mineral resources and oil revenue. Oil revenues have been going down due to reduction in oil production in the country. And so all these, there are a lot of what ifs. The ambition is great. We hope that if all things are equal, there's improvement in the connectivity, access to roads and connecting farms to factories and all. The young people are waiting and looking for jobs. The evidence we saw last week with the stampede and the death of, unfortunately, young people in the quest to enroll in the military are all indicators of the extent of the hopelessness that exists in terms of the need to generate jobs for young people. And so for me, I think
Will this budget do that?
This budget has promised a number of things, and I'm saying that if the implementation is right, it holds a bit of promise. Okay. At least we do not see that the budget is a bit futuristic, investing in infrastructure, investing in oil palm plantation, for example. But I see that the emphasis really should also be on value addition. Because when you look at palm oil production, we have done this decades with cocoa, for example. Sure. Although the value addition for palm oil, for palm plantation is vast and wider than cocoa production. I mean, this will take a while. I mean, it will take about 3 to 4 years for the fruits, the trees to bear fruits for us to see. But it's an investment, and I think that we should not end at the agricultural bit. We should invest in the value addition, which is important in the creation of quality jobs. And so, for example, I keep insisting, a number of the jobs that we are rolling out are sort of temporary in nature. As we move on, government should bring the private sector on board to create the needed jobs that can afford people the quality lives that they are looking for after graduating from school. So in all, the truth will come out in the implementation. Efficiency, value for money, and government sticking to its course of spending within its limits with tighter controls on government expenditure is critical towards the delivery of what the budget is promising.
Fantastic. Dr. Priscilla Chumesi Bafo, before I bring you in, lawyer Vicky Bright has a message, and I think it's only fair that I read that out. She says, it's a pity that I had left the studio before Kabiru launched a personal attack on me. I have nothing personal against the former Chief Justice. Neither am I telling the minority how it should conduct its business. As a Ghanaian, I have every right to express my opinion that the minority should have been present at the vetting of the new CJ to put their questions to him directly. This would have been good for all Ghanaians. The fact that I do not see a problem with the President's actions regarding Article 146, insofar as Justice Tokonu's matter is concerned, does not suggest that I have a personal problem with Justice Tokonu. To arrive at such a conclusion is quite ridiculous and has no basis whatsoever. To also suggest that I am the only woman in Ghana who does not support her is not only erroneous, but very simplistic. We should refrain from personal attacks. We are all Ghanaians and everyone's opinion must be respected, whether or not one agrees with them. That's lawyer Vicky Bright. Lawyer, thank you. That's fine. Yeah, what do you think now? I mean, after your presentation, you've heard from the two politicians, finally.
So I think what's important is there are some very good programs that have been highlighted in the budget.
Yes.
So I'm happy the two members of parliament are here. We need to accelerate the process of passing the law. And as we were discussing, I mean, people are expecting these tax reforms to take effect immediately. So we have to accelerate the process of making sure the appropriation bill is passed and the relevant acts are passed so that we start getting the benefit of that. And I'll mention the allocation to capital expenditure, supporting infrastructure development. That is something that I think we should support.
Okay.
Because you are increasing the value of your GDP when you make these some of these projects, such as the Accra-Kumasi Expressway. For your information, that project has been on the drawing board under a PPP framework for more than 20 years.
Oh, you don't mean
And yes, so this is from 2005 to date. It's over 2 decades, and we've still been so we've gone through feasibility study and all. So this time we should implement it. So we shouldn't leave it at feasibility stage. We shouldn't leave it as where we've had all these drawings.
Yeah, the minister says 3 years it will be completed.
I'm told it's a total new road, though.
Yeah, it is a total new. It's not the normal. It's not the normal Accra-Kumasi stretch. It is something new.
And that is actually a good strategy because some of the challenges we had in the current project is that there are so many connection points.
Sure.
And so for you to avoid that and for you to toll it and get the revenues, you need to use a new expressway where there are not so many connection points and you avoid the issue.
Yes.
Because we started this project even before Nairobi, Mombasa in Kenya. They have completed that, and we are still where we are after more than 20 years. So this time, we expect it to be implemented in 3 years. The second one is some of the policies or initiatives that we've seen. Historically, we've seen the cassava starch initiative. We've heard about the one district, one factory. We've heard all manner of policies. The problem has been sustainable implementation of the policies. I remember Kufuor administration started the cassava starch initiative.
Yeah, the PSI project.
A lot of these, I mean, the question is where are they? Same thing, the first administration of John Mahama also had some initiatives. Today, some of the initiatives are not there. So I think we should, and the reason why we have some of this problem is that we don't use existing institutions to implement them. So if you have a department under the Ministry of Trade that has a program or there's an initiative that's supposed to support that, we should use the same ministry to implement the program so that there's institutional memory. We don't need to establish a new secretariat for that. Because what happens is that we appoint people who are politically exposed, and so whenever there's a new administration, we change those people and the program dies. We should use existing institutions to implement our programs. We have PPP units at the Ministry of Finance, so you have a big project that we want to implement using public-private partnership. We should use that department to do it. We shouldn't create new secretariat, new district, new departments to implement projects, because once there's a change in administration, that project dies out. And I think that's something that we should all aim at. And I guess...
Fantastic.
Yes, okay.
Yao Apia Latte there. Thank you so much. But before I say goodbye, let me say a big thank you to our proud sponsors. Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, as close as a partner. MTN, everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex Tank, it's strong, it's tough. Activa International Insurance, our clients, our passion. International Facilities Management Association, Safari Valley Eco Park, bringing you closer to nature. Valex Lease, your affordable document management solutions, and Gold Board Jewelry, pure, precious, proudly Ghanaian. A big thank you to lawyer Victoria Bright, Dr. Priscilla Chumesi Bafo, Yao Apia Latte, the Honorable Isaac Adongo, and Honorable Dr. Mahama Tia Abdul Kabiru, MP for Walewale constituency. My name is Philip Osei Bonsu. Samson Ladi Anyenini will be back next week, God willing, on Newsfile. Good afternoon.